What are we doing? We're here, baby. A little bit early today. Murder Church on the air Tuesday night. We're rocking 3 hours tonight with Linda Kinney Bodden. We're going to finish up the closing. We've got 10 hours left of the trial. Give it a share. Give it a like. Let's put it to work.
Let's rock.
We've made it so far, my children. What is going on? We have made it. And there we go. Boom. Turn this guy on. What's going on, everybody? Made it in here a little bit early tonight. Like I said, I wanted to get through 3 hours. Finally, we're going to finish out part 4, part 5, and part 6 of Linda Kinney Bodden's closing statements for the defense. As I'm doing some other stuff here too. I'm trying to get the Botrix up and rocking. Should only take a second. But yeah, welcome in all you fine folks. I appreciate everyone for coming through here. 10 hours left. We have 10 hours left of this trial, and we are going to finish it this week because next Tuesday night, 1 week from tonight, I want to start Charlie Adelson's trial. That is the day that the jury is selected for his mother, Donna Adelson, and we're going to get rocking and rolling. But right now, Holly Berry coming through here. Factual Lie in the house. Carrie in the house. BGOG. Jersey Jen. What's up, what's up? Carrie, what's up? Welcome in, guys. Without further ado, like I said, we're putting in some work tonight. Let's go. Also, we do have a book club immediately following this. It will be a shorter one. Chapters 30 and 31 of The Stranger Beside Me was pretty short, but I've got the notes ready to go. Let's rock.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
When we left, I said to you, someone once said we are entitled to our own facts, but no one is entitled to his own facts. We're entitled to our own opinions, but no one is entitled to his own facts. Despite the fact the science clearly showed this to be a self-inflicted wound, and despite the fact there was a recommendation to do a psychological autopsy, everyone ignored it because they wanted to. As I told you before, don't find the facts.
Settle in for tonight. Get your snacks.
And they didn't find the facts. They wanted to reject the ones because it didn't fit their theory and not find ones because it may contradict with their theory. But we want you to go in there and look to see what you see. Not what they tell you, not what I tell you. What you see. You search for the truth. You seek the truth. The government wanted this tragic death to be a murder. No one wanted to stop that steamroller. No one wanted to get in the way of that institutional mindset. Ms. Clarkson. We discussed a few things that the government had that made one of the coroner's criminalists want to do a psychological autopsy. We also discussed the fact that if the evidence had been reviewed carefully, it clearly would have stopped the investigation into Philip. And more importantly, it should have directed the investigation toward the decedent. If they had done that instead of fixating on Philip, here are some of the things they would have learned, some of the things that you saw and Dr. Pena never saw for the first time in this courtroom. Now, one of the earliest emails that was read to you, that was available at the time, was written in 2001. Ms. Clarkson discussing the fact that she's hurt herself in the past when drinking tequila, as usual.
Haven't we all?
And you know, on the night that she died, she had been drinking tequila. When you saw that in opening statement, that was the first time that anyone had paid attention to that or looked at it. Dr. Pena had not seen it. The police didn't look at it, and more importantly, as I said, no one from the coroner's office considered it.
Got some shares coming through here. Jay, Bassett Page, Salty Sleuths, Factual Lie, True Crime Butterfly. Thanks for those shares. Really, really appreciate that, guys.
You also know that in 2004, after Philip had been arrested and charged, They learned, the government, that she had the blackout drinking periods in the letter to L.B. Moon. And you don't have to take my word from it. These were her own words. Blackout drinking. This document was found by the government's computer expert in 2004 after Philip was charged with the homicide, but it was never read by the coroner. In May of 2005, after Philip had already been indicted, a box of documents concerning Ms. Clarkson's mental statement was sent to the coroner's office, but it did not include all the documents because the computer had not been looked at and statements from a lot of her friends, such as Greg Sims and Jennifer Hayes, had not even been ever taken until we brought them here until trial. Dr. Pena's superiors made a determination to lock that box away in the closet and never show it to anybody. Lock it in the closet. Now, what else would they have known if they had directed their investigation towards her? But we know she had a history of alcohol abuse and pain addiction. If they had bothered, they would have learned that she tried to become sober in August and September of 2002 and was successful for only 30 days and failed. That's a tragedy in of itself. They would have learned that she was so financially stressed and emotionally distraught that starting in December 2002, she wanted to chuck it all. In fact, take a look at Lana Clarkson's own description of her own mental state near the time of her death. Jen, could we stop? Over here, things are pretty bad. I won't go into detail, but I'm on the verge of losing it all, just hanging on by a thread.
Carrie!
I'm at the end of my rope here. I cannot function under these circumstances any longer. I don't want to take so much medication, yet I seem to have no alternative right now. I am going through a difficult time right now, the worst I have ever endured in this lifetime. I am not certain what my lessons or karma are, but I'm truly being tested almost beyond my limit. So again, sorry to be so rude. I was standing there alone again, watching the fireworks, looking at all the strangers, happy couples, frolicking children, people with stomachs, and families with normal lives. I'm working several jobs and still struggling to keep my house. This has been hands down the most difficult I have ever experienced in this lifetime. I am beat up physically, emotionally, and spiritually. This has been the most difficult life of my entire year, difficult year of my entire life, and has not gotten any better. Financially, my life is in shambles, and I'm on the verge of losing everything. Kind of strange position to be in at this age. The cowboy canceled his trip out here, and I was walking down the street the other day looking longingly at a half-finished cup of coffee and cookie someone had left on a cafe table. Shit, man, this has been the roughest. I even began to question my goals and my talent. I stopped all pain meds and alcohol again, so no numbing for me.
Yo, Pammy.
Next. Who would know better about Miss Clarkson, how she was feeling, than looking at her own words? You don't need to castigate someone like Pumpkin Pie or Jennifer Hayes or Greg Sims, because they corroborate what she herself was telling anyone if they wanted to listen, or anyone if they wanted to find it. If the government had bothered to look at Ms. Clarkson's mental state, they would have learned for the 2-month period beginning in December 2002, or she had looked for to try to make a psychological counseling appointment with Mary Goldenson, who we brought here before you. If they had looked at her day planner, they would have seen that she had a couple psychological sessions with another psychologist that was noted in her 2002 day planner, a Catherine Bainbridge. They would have learned that she was also engaging in crying jags and in such severe depression, the likes of which her friends had not seen from her ever, culminating the week before she died with such statements of depression that even one of her friends, Greg Sim, told her she needed to get help 5 days before she died. And finally, they would have learned that at the beginning of January, the man she thought was the one wasn't the one. One can understand why it was just too much for one girl to bear anymore. We present this to you because this is evidence that was available to the government when they were determining the manner of death and available to the prosecution in presenting this case. This would have given them, and we have just tried to give you the full picture of the circumstances surrounding the evening of February 3rd, 2003. We have not, as has been intimated, presented this evidence to besmirch Lana Clarkson or to assassinate her character in any way, but so that you have the full picture, the one that normally would have only been available to the investigators and the coroner if the appropriate investigation had been done. The government has talked about Ms. Clarkson's state of mind as normal ups and downs and equated her depression to a football fan after his team loss. Do the emails that you saw and that you will read fully in the jury room, talking about chucking it all, tidying her affairs and putting them in order, and prolonged crying jags sound like a sad football fan? Making phone calls for professional help? Clinical treatment for her depression started at least 10 years ago when she went to a mental health counselor to try to get treatment in 1994, and then apparently couldn't afford it or didn't seek it. There were confessionals to friends. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot more serious than the normal ups and downs that a football fan experiences. The government is minimizing Ms. Clarkson's problems because it doesn't fit their theory that Philip Spector killed her. What else do we know about Ms. Clarkson's problems? She had addiction, pain, financial ruin, career failure. Recently, she had been rejected a lot for parts. Her dream of fame was destroyed. She had no one to share her life, no marriage, no romantic partner, no children. She had been distraught by losing her youth. She had even resorted to forging letters to say she was better than she was. That is signs of desperation and seriousness. Obviously, these are from her own words. We know she had a number of these risk factors for engaging in reckless activity, and people do stupid things when they engage in reckless activity. But the risk factors of alcohol and drugs. You can't pick up a paper and not see something reckless happen for somebody on alcohol and drugs. She was desperately trying to deal with her pain inside herself alone, trying to deal with her pain. She was on the brink of bankruptcy. Despite spending thousands of dollars on a demo reel, she had a floundering career. She owed money. She had a feeling of failure. The relationship with a man that she thought was going to take her all the way from this had just ended weeks before she died. She placed a huge store in herself and her career. She had some past successes, but simply put, the phone had really stopped ringing. A few $100s for commercials in 1 year does not negate that fact. The government's own evidence and ours tells us that the career was the main focus of Lana Clarkson's life. She had given everything for this career. They did not talk about the other plans she may have had to marry LB to take her away from it. The government told you about the happy and hopeful Lana Clarkson, but they did not tell you, did not want you to know about the other dark side, about her depressiveness, because it did not fit into their theory of the case. The fact is that both these Lana Clarksons existed, as they do in many people. You know, people are not all good, they're not all bad, they're not all happy, and they're not all sad. People can be both fundamentally happy and sad, and it's what they do with these emotions in a split second of their life that can change their future forever. Whatever happened, happiness and hope at the time of Lana Clarkson's death were not her primary conditions. We know that back as far as 1994, she tried to see a counselor. Her goals were to get rid of her crying jags, which she could not control. We know that she was strong, but we also know she'd been frustrated, depressed, desperate, almost destitute, humiliated, and embarrassed. We know that whatever going on with her life, she felt the need to forge letters, to talk to them, to try to get money from people. Depression at that stage in her life, it's not surprising. Lana Clarkson was very good at putting on a good face on her desperate situation. But a person can be both positive on the outside and profoundly unhappy
Simi?
on the inside. And wasn't it prescient when Mr. Dixon, in fact, asking the investigator who looked through Lana Clarkson's cottage whether it was a mess? Because you remember Lana Clarkson said she trashed her cottage at one time. Like Mr. Dixon asked. Like someone didn't take care of themselves. Like, I don't know, Owen Wilson? He continued on in Wedding Crashers, and wasn't that a prescient comment? People can put on a game face. People at the top of their profession can be profoundly sad inside. That does not mean that you don't look when something tragic happens to see what may have been there that wasn't seen by others. You don't look because maybe you don't want to find. How does depression manifest itself? How does someone deal with depression? How did Ms. Clarkson deal with hers? Well, we know that she had pain and addiction. Major withdrawals from pain pills, falling in and out of love, trying to stay sober, totally broke. Hey, I have more serious addictions like pain pills. I hurt myself, of course, injured as usual by tequila.
What's up, Nosy Rosie?
I was not kidding when I told you this has been the most difficult year of my life. Blackout drinking quote again. First day sober. Meeting 1 month. She chose to drink, and she had a problem with drinking in the past. We saw that she talked in her emails about trying to become sober. She talked in her emails about her addictions, and you'll have them there, the whole story, the story that Dr. Pena didn't have and the government never looked for. In August, where she said she was first day sober, she tried to come off. But obviously, that didn't work. And when we talk about killing oneself, accidentally, intentionally, because you have risk factors, what does that mean? We don't say that somebody intentionally plans it. Dr. DeMaio and Spitz told you that suicide for a forensic pathologist may merely mean a self-inflicted injury based on a reckless act. It could be intentional, it could be reckless, it could be spur of the moment, it could be accidental. As a matter of fact, you saw a coroner's form from the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office that said suicide-accident on it. It's not an unheard of concept. All it means is that it's self-inflicted. Self-inflicted, maybe because of risk factors. Dr. DeMaio and Dr. Spitz said they would have assigned it a suicide because they didn't know whether it was intentional, planned, but that's what they would have signed it. Dr. Bodden said he believed it was a reckless accident based on the risk factors. Whatever the reason behind it, that's for you to discuss. That's for you to discuss. The science shows that the wound was self-inflicted. That is not a mystery. It never has been, if you wanted to look. The reason why it was self-inflicted, that's the mystery. That you'll discuss, but it's not necessarily for you to decide. The fact is there is ample evidence for the coroner, police, and for the government to find that Lana Clarkson had indeed a number of reasons why she could have shot herself. We will never know how deep Lana Clarkson's depression was because a psychological autopsy was not done by the proper professionals at the proper time. Did she think about what it would be like without intending to pull the trigger? Was she playing
Simi Afton, thanks for those shares. I appreciate that, guys.
with the gun? Was she practicing for a movie role? Was she putting it in her mouth for some other reason? Did the gun go off accidentally? Very possibly. I asked Mr. Carroll on the stand, that was the government's ballistic expert, if you recall, if you've got your finger slightly on the trigger and it's slightly pulled back the hammer, can the gun go off accidentally? This gun, because it's a Saturday night, 38. And the answer was a resounding yes. That, ladies and gentlemen, what Jim Pex told you was something called a snap fire. And remember in Dr. Spitz's video when he was firing the gun?
Okay, go. Hammer back. Take your finger off the trigger when you do that, please.
Tell me when.
Yeah, go.
take your finger off the trigger when you do that, please, when you start pulling the hammer back. Because if you've got your thumb on the trigger or finger on the trigger and it's slightly retarding it, pushing it back, and you start pulling the hammer back, that gun can fire. So I say again, did it accidentally go off? Was she playing around? Was she acting out of scene? Or was she feeling the gun from memory for a future scene? Or did she hit rock bottom? Psychological autopsy should have been done once the science showed this was a self-inflicted wound. And let's get over the idea that the gun was secreted with Phil Spector's bullets and Phil Spector's draw. It's very clear evidence that Phil Spector tells women when he first meets them that he has or carries a gun. Rami Davis told you that. He told Rami Davis, and he said he told her that he tells women that he carries a gun in case they're upset with it, or has a gun in case they're upset with it. So you can infer from that he told Lana Clarkson, since it was its first time he'd met her, that he had a gun or carried a gun and that he had put it in the holster and he put it in the drawer when he came home. She would know where the gun was, not because it was secreted. And by the way, did you see the pictures? Always, even on September 4th when Mr. Renteria was there, you'll go search for him. That drawer is
Oh, yeah, True Crime Butterfly going to come in. Let me see. I haven't even looked at the wheel or promoted it here tonight. Where we at? $2 holler. Happy Taco Tuesday. Damn, I went out and I had a salad here tonight. Actually, I had 2 salads. For lunch, I had a turkey salad, and for dinner, I had a chicken salad. Still trying to be good, which I've been doing well, I should say. We are at, we're working on one. So where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're number 10. Boom. Thank you, True Crime Butterfly.
still open. Did it get stuck? Is that the way it was? But in any event, Rami Davis told you why she could have known there was a gun, not because it was secreted. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Because however she got the gun, she had it. Her DNA on the areas of the grip that are non-bloody, not Philip Spector's. She held the gun and she retarded that trigger. Whatever happened in her life at that split second, you can and you should have sympathy for Lana Clarkson. The government in this case told you we're smearing the victim. They have a very black and white view of the world. They think people, as I said, are only good or bad. And they depend on this world's view to say that Phil Spector is a bad man and that Lana Clarkson is a good woman, therefore he must have shot her. The fact is, like most of us, neither Lana Clarkson or Phil Spector are entirely good or entirely bad. Like most of us, like every person, they have their flaws. Here, what the government wants you to believe is that Phil Spector is a bad man, and therefore he shot her. They want you to hate him and supplant the facts of this
Just in case. You never know.
case with that hatred. They want you to use emotion to convict Phil Spector rather than rely on the scientific evidence that clearly exonerates him. The government thinks that if you are sympathetic with Lana Clarkson, you will want to convict Phil Spector. And wouldn't it be so easy to convict him on that basis? So easy because you hate him from what you've heard? Wouldn't it be so easy? But it would be so wrong. How does the government tell this story in order to get you to hate Phil Spector? First, they portray Lana Clarkson as a happy, hopeful, vulnerable, and naive. They know that if they portray her in this way, you will reasonably conclude that Philip Spector controlled all of the events that night and that she had no choice whatsoever about going back to his house with him or about leaving. This is the way they construct the story of the vulnerable victim against the evil madman. We think you should feel sympathy to Lana Clarkson. It is a tragedy to her family, and the loss of any child dying before a parent is a tragedy at any time. In fact, you heard from
Dorothy. I think we're only one away. Jersey Jen getting us right in there for a wheel tonight. Thank you, Jersey Jen. She says, thank you, Publicly Buzz. No, thank you, Jersey Jen, for being fucking awesome. Appreciate that.
when she told you that she had had
Somebody at Wynn?
conversations with Philip about the death of his 9-year-old son. She told you that she had conversations throughout the whole time with him. She told you that. But that doesn't mean you don't look at evidence for either of them. You feel sympathy for every parent that loses a child, but that's not what's involved in this case. You can feel sympathy for her and still look clearly at the evidence. As a matter of fact, it's important to you. It's important to you. And you should feel sympathy for her to understand why she may have done something like this or what made her happen to pick up that gun and put it in her mouth. Her friends, her closest friends, even though the government tried to get you to think they were not, came forward and told the whole story, because the only true way to be someone's friend is to tell the whole story, and the only way to bring truth to our system of justice and let justice recognize truth is to be forthrightly honest, not cowardly intimidated by the mob. The government tried to undermine the clear reliability that Irene Elizabeth Laughlin, Pumpkin Pie, was Lana Clarkson's best friend.
I should have done a pumpkin pie
Remember when
emoji
Mr. Dixon
when
on
she was
redirect implied that Pie, as everyone called her, was lying about seeing Lana partying while her wrists were healing? Maybe you didn't remember it, but let me show you a picture that you will be able to see in the jury room that's in evidence that clearly showed that that implication was false. There's the wrists. That's what the Happy New Year, that when Pie was examined, there was some implication that she was lying about that being her birthday party because it had Happy New Year. And Pie said that was her birthday party, but they were wearing Happy New Year crowns, kind of like I'm celebrating the new year. That's the cast on one of the wrists. It was there for everyone to see, but you have to want.
Idiot Wind finishes off the will. Thank you very much, Idiot Wind. Appreciate that. $20 coming through. Thank you very much. That's absolutely incredible. So you're going to finish off the will, and then I get to start a brand new will because Pammy came through basically at the exact same time with a critical hit. $5 holler. Thank you so much, Pammy. I appreciate the hell out of that. So both of you guys and I will get a wheel rocking and rolling, and we'll do a giveaway here tonight again and giving away some awesome stuff. I've got the magnets. I've got the Hell Yeah magnet, which is an emoji in the chat that you can pop up. I've got the Murder Church magnet, another emoji that you can pop up. Of course, you'll get the Publicly Buzzed coaster, and then I've got some cool classic pink Publicly Buzzed stickers I will toss in there for you also. Incredible tonight. You guys are the fucking best.
To seek the truth.
Crazy. We're going to be here for a while also. A lot of late stragglers came through. We're getting through 3 hours of Linda Kinney Bodden here tonight. We're finishing up the closings. We have 10 hours left of this trial, and we're going to finish them this week. Next Tuesday, I want to start Season 6 of Murder Church, Charlie Adelson 2023 trial. The same day that Donna Adelson, the jury selection began. So we're right in there, which is going to be freaking sweet. So there may be extra. Thursday we're doing this trial, and Sunday we may be going long to finish this trial. Just keep all that in mind. And then immediately after this show tonight, we have the book club, and we've read chapters 30 and 31 of The Stranger Beside Me. So get prepared, guys.
You have to want to look.
Going in tonight.
Let's talk a little bit about Pie.
Thanks, everyone, for hanging out.
Pie was Lana Clarkson's best friend. It's clear from the pictures, the emails, the date books, the testimony from Greg Sim, Jennifer Hayes, Tamara Hansen, even though the prosecution would like you to believe otherwise. They need to attack Pie to sell their story to you of a happy, happy Lana. And maybe you all laughed. Saw some of you laughing. Maybe we laughed when Pie first, and it was made allusion to yesterday, when Pie first came into this courtroom dressed or undressed, depending on how you look at it. But remember, Lana Clarkson chose Pumpkin Pie as her best friend for over a decade. And if we laugh at Pumpkin Pie, we are laughing at Lana Clarkson. The government's treatment of Pie is indicative of how they have treated every witness that has not fit into the theory of this case. They have attacked, ridiculed, denigrated, and scoffed at anyone who would dare say anything that might in the slightest contradict their theory of the case. They denigrated the experts who said they believed this was a self-inflicted wound on the basis of science as being biased. The government wants you to believe that these people would rather go to their graves, putting hundreds of collective years of their reputation on the line for someone called Phil Spector. They want you to believe that these men of science, the same science that's responsible
Spector,
for freeing the
specifically
unjustly convicted
money,
and convicting the justly
loot.
properly, would rather go to the grave under a cloud of impropriety. They even went after someone like Daniel Stark, a firefighter for the city of Los Angeles, and implied that he was a liar and wouldn't let him tell his whole story until Mr. Rosen got up on redirect. And let's play that clip. Let's remember.
Oh,
of
shit.
how-
I'd like to point out something to you, if I may.
I'm sure Mr. Rose will ask you to point that out.
Okay.
That's all I have for this witness.
Redirect.
Point it out.
Let's see.
Okay, I'm basically being cross-examined here, and you're trying to state basically that the way I'm taking is that I'm a liar, and I'm not.
And then he went on to discuss why the form showed that he was right, that there were two separate sets of times in that form, if you recall, that indicated that Mr. Liverpool had been wrong. But these type of attacks from the government have been all too common in this case from the time they started this investigation, because they weren't willing to open up to look at the whole truth, to seek the truth like we're asking you to do. Anytime anyone deviated from the story, they have been attacked, maligned, and bullied into submitted into a version. Even Pumpkin Pie talked about how she felt bullied. But there is a way to cross-examine witnesses, a way to treat witnesses, a way to try to get information of witnesses so that you can search for the truth without being denigrating to the years of education, knowledge, and just a basic human being attitude dealing with both everyday people, experts, and professionals. We hope that we were at least successful in bringing some of the truth to you, and if we've done anything wrong, please don't hold it against us, but do not hold it against Philip Spector. We want you to have all the facts for you to consider on your map of justice. It's the map of justice that you're going to be taking into the deliberation room, trying not to keep anything from you. Because a trial is not about only getting to one location, a location of a place called win at all costs. A trial is about a search for the truth so that you, all of you, individually and collectively, can honestly and forthrightly discuss your opinions and come to a very serious decision.
Boom, got a wheel ready.
Why would the government treat everyone who dares to disagree with them with such malice and contempt like Pi has been treated, rather than merely rely on their own evidence, the scientific evidence and the other evidence? Are there attacks because they don't have a strong case and desperately need to tear down the character of these witnesses because they cannot tear down what evidence the witnesses are bringing to you unless they tear down character? The government has excoriated our expert witness and pedestaled their own. They imply that our experts have no accountability while theirs do. By the way, their accountability is to the government that pays them. They work with these people all the time. They all get paid by the same entity. They all have pension plans. They all have friends. So let's look at the experts in this case. Dr. Andrews, Dr. Pena, and Criminalist Herald have never been to the scene, Dr. Pena said he hadn't been to the scene of an intraoral gunshot wound.
Who's Jen going to get in here? Who's going to get that thing? It's not showing me who's getting it, but somebody's getting it. There we go. Danielle Savoy. Welcome in here. Get some beers and hell yeahs in the chat for Danielle. Boom. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Jen. Gonna get you on that wheel. That new wheel coming up.
Of an intraoral gunshot wound.
Jen's insane.
Dr. Harold had never even seen an intraoral gunshot wound case. As a result, they may not have seen actual blood spatter under those circumstances, a unique situation. Dr. Pena said he hardly goes to scenes at all. Dr. Spitz, DeMaio, and Baden have gone to thousands of scenes and have seen many intraoral gunshot wounds in their commensurate spatter effort. It's communal, combined. Remember when Mr. Jackson compared some of our experts' report to the investigation notes and ridiculed the experience and performance of our 3 experts? Well, I don't have files to drop out, but you heard that Dr. Spitz, the lead book in the country, 10 pounds. You heard that Dr.
She's tossing them. Just add a little extra effect.
James, lead book. Dr. Leetsma, lead book. Dr. James, Dr. Kish and Mr. James, I'm sorry, another lead Spector book. Dr. DeMaio, book. And you heard about Dr. Lee, who they accuse of evidence, book. This represents the collective experience of only some of the experts in this case. This is their lifetime of work. Not all of them are retired, as was hinted to you. One works for the New York State Police. Some work for the other law enforcement agencies around the country, along with testifying for the defense on occasion. Drs. Baden, Spitz, and DeMille spent their lives as prosecution experts, including being experts sometimes of the very office that...
I'd raise my hand if I was a juror and be like, would you mind to have Rosen turn his fuck face around? That'd be great. That'd be good.
Now accuses them of somehow phoning the science. Were they liars when they testified for the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office? And oh, by the way, all 3 testified their fees are consistent, whether they testify for the prosecution or the defense. Evidence was misstated when they submitted to you, the government submitted to you, that some of our experts did not consider Phillips' history. Not true. They did. They told you that on the stand. I was here for 2 of them, and you'll have to remember for your judgment on the 3rd one. And they divined that it was irrelevant to the question at hand. It gave no information as to who put the finger on the trigger and who put the gun in the mouth of Lana Clark on the evening of February 3rd, 2003. And that's the only thing that counts, because that's why we have science. That's why we have government labs. That's why we have crime labs. That's why we have trace evidence. That's why we have DNA, GSR, blood spatter, and other areas of forensic science to specifically discern scientifically so that judgments aren't wrong. Judgments are wrong in very important decisions. That's why it's done, because witnesses can be wrong and emotion can deceive. The prosecution also said that because our 3 experts are in agreement about their findings, then their findings must be scripted. But has the government ever considered that the experts are in agreement about
Super
their findings?
Super hard on that, actually.
Because they are true?
Oh, Jersey Jen gonna keep it rolling. Hit that like, sub, and ring the bell. That's right. Make sure the bell is clicked for anytime I go live. May help you out in getting a notification. I know YouTube doesn't, they're kind of bad about that, but it would definitely help out anyways. Thank you, Jen. Lovely Jen. Jersey
Because
Jen.
they are the hallmarks of what every scientist use, just like mathematicians have hallmarks.
Staring them
just
down.
like everyone in their profession has certain hallmarks by which to judge things. The government has conceded a number of points. They criticize our experts, but here are some of the science they have not disputed. The government has agreed on the trajectory of the bullet path. They have not disputed that the blood spot on Phillips' tricep part of his coat is spatter. As a matter of fact, they're the ones who found it. Therefore, it is their burden to explain how it got there, and they have not. And you cannot say, well, maybe it occurred sometime else. This is a case in this court today for proof beyond a reasonable doubt. If he shoots right-handed, there is no explanation for how it got there aside from the fact of Philip throwing up his right arm to protect himself as Lana Clarkson shot herself. You heard James Pex tell you that blood spatter does not turn corners. There is no blood spatter on Philip's coat cuffs on the lower coat sleeves. No one ever came and testified differently, and the arrows don't indicate to that. There's one arrow here on the left, which Mr. James told you was a transfer stain, was never disputed. There was no blood spatter or tissue on a shirt. There were no smokeless particles on the shirt. except for the blood in one of the left pockets. I think I said right before, I meant left. There was no blood in the right, there was left. There was no trace evidence in his pockets. There was no blood spatter or tissue on his pants. There was no smokeless burnt or unburnt particles on his pants. There was no trace evidence found by the forensic nurse on his face or body. If he shot her, his entire arm would have been enveloped by the 2-foot radius. There's no blood spatter or tissue on any of his other clothing besides his
We
jacket.
could probably stop saying that.
There's no blood spatter travels at least 2 feet. There is no evidence of blood or tissue or any physical
They did
matter
just both the prosecution
in any
and
of
the
the
state
drains
just,
of the house.
and we got a rebuttal coming up, which it's
There
only
was
like an
GSR
hour-ish or
in
maybe a
Lana
little more, maybe an hour and a half.
Clarkson's
But
and the teeth on the stairs were
Just beat the
projected
hell
there
out of these
by the
jurors,
gun
man.
blast. These scientific facts are not
beat
disputed.
the fuck out of it. Might as well have baseball bats out, just beat the
By
jurors.
not disputing, they have
Whooping
not
'em down.
disproved this evidence. In fact, in many cases, have agreed with exactly the same evidence that our experts relied on. If Phillips shot Lana Clarkson, his hand would have to be holding the gun, unless, of course, it fell into her mouth. Under every scenario presented by the government, Phillips' right hand, coat sleeve, and shirt.
What's up, Allison? Allison has been going through and watching these in order, which is freaking sweet. I can't believe you guys are on episode 99. I'm on episode 13, but I saw you were live and wanted to stop in and say hello. Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's crazy. I see your comments and I try to answer them when I see them, but that's freaking sweet. I'm glad that you're going along for that wild ride, because it's a lot. It's a long time.
Have been in the 2-foot radius of that cloud. Therefore, if his
16
hand was
months
there,
we've been on this?
the right sleeve, at very least, would have blood spatter.
I was a different age
The
back
government
then.
says the blood
I was
spatter
a different person.
would normally be there, and then try to explain why it's not. Since it's not, the government, by their own agreement, has conceded implicitly that there's reasonable doubt. Additionally, they have not disputed there is a GSR in the lungs, and have not presented any evidence except how it got there, except that she could have breathed in. It's certainly GSR didn't get there by gravity. So it's reasonable for you to conclude that GSR was aspirated into the lungs, which had to occur after the gunshot, after the gun went off. Therefore, Lana Clarkson had to have taken at least one post-shot breath. And since we know that whatever she has breathed in has to be breathed out, this could also account for some of the spatter on Phillips' jacket. Since they have a rebuttal argument, and I won't be able to talk to you, if they can show you an evidence where they have refuted these items, then you can test the weight of each side's evidence. You test the weight on those issues. However, if they can't, that's reasonable doubt. Let's talk a little bit of Mr. DeSouza. In the government's endeavor to make evidence fit their theory, they have clearly relied on Adriano DeSouza. Now, remember, I discussed with you that it's very important to be objective, fair, unbiased. Barbara Nelson from the coroner's office told you it's important to challenge and verify statements made by witnesses at the scene while you're doing an investigation. Coroner investigation Nelson told you that you should challenge and verify these statements, no doubt about it. Now, what happened was, criminalist Nelson did not have the statement. If we could put that back up, Jen? And just leave it there for a moment, please. But you can only do that if you are given all of the information. We are asking you to look at all of the information, as much as could be brought to you in a trial, so that you have the complete picture. We may be a defense team, but we speak with one voice on this issue. And Philip Spector has been accused of having a checkbook defense by hiring a team of lawyers and experts. But unlike the state of California, we don't have an office with hundreds of lawyers, hundreds of investigators, hundreds of criminalists, and $1 billion budget. I do want to say before I do forget that I do thank you for letting me into your state and into your courtroom. I know it does not matter to you where I come from, because ultimately we all come from and go to the same place. But getting back to Mr. Sousa, prior to you hearing this evidence, we know that the police determined that this to be a murder on day one, and try to fit every proverbial round peg into a square hole to support their theory. You will have the log in there for their crime scene. The coroner was not even on the scene at 6 p.m. on February 3rd. A cause of death had not even been rendered. And yet, even prior to him being on the scene, Mr. Dixon, who's a very fine attorney, was seated here. Here's Dr. Pena. Mr. Dixon, from the major crimes unit of the DA's office, was already at the home of Mr. Spector. Dr. Pena hadn't even gotten there yet. Don't take my word for it. It's in the log, and you'll have the whole log to see how many people were at that scene. Now, what happened? The physical evidence showed that Philip Spector was not the shooter. But the cops, instead of challenging and verifying the investigation, immediately bought into the story of Adriano de Souza, that he had heard Philip Spector say, "I think I killed someone," or shot someone, depending on whose version or whose report you heard about in court here. Let's walk through for you to see, and you'll have all of it in the jury room. Let's walk through to see.
Oh, Gabby. Hey, you have a shirt on the way. I finally got that ordered yesterday. I apologize for the wait. On the way, though, baby.
What you see by going through a little bit of the history of how that statement came to be. First, in the 911 call, Mr. De Souza does not say those words that he said he was definitely sure.
Yeah, Jersey Jen coming through with a $2. Jersey Jen's on fire, man. She's always going wild in here, boy. Get on that publicly buzzed train. Thank you so much, Jen. Where are we at right now? Jen's going to get on this wheel again. Whoa, Jen's going to take this wheel. We're up to 3 right now with Jen. She says, I'm going to win this thing. There are no limits to how many times you can get on a physical wheel. Thank you, Jen.
I think I killed someone. Here's what the transcript is. It says, yeah, I hear the like a noise. And then he opened the door and, quote, I think he, dash, dash, I killed her, close quote.
Oh, shit. Dude, y'all are the kindest, man. I'm telling you right now, Buzz Nation, kindest folks in the world. Are you kidding me? Idiot Win coming through here, gifting out 5 memberships today. Allison M. grabbing one, brand new to the congregation. B. Crumbs, Leslie Lalelu, I'm probably butchering the hell out of that. Distracted Therapist and Pink Sunray, welcome in here. Let's get some hell yes and some beers in the chat. Hell yes. Appreciate that, Idiot Win. That's your first spot on this wheel. You have a couple of spots on the other wheel as well. And she's been absolutely kind as hell. Super generous. I really appreciate the hell out of that. Thank you so much. And also some brand new folks that are in here. One thing that I'm going to say right now, what we got going on tonight after the show, the book club. Boom, we're reading The Stranger Beside Me by Ann Rule. Just read chapters 30 and 31, Ted Bundy book, and that will go live immediately after tonight's live, which we're going to be sitting here for quite a while. I'm trying to get through the rest of this closing. We've probably got another 2.5 hours, something like that. And but yeah, immediately after that, we're going to be going over those notes, which it won't be super long tonight. Those chapters were extremely short. The person that I listened to reading that book to me while I'm working, it was only 10 minutes to get through it. So again, it's not going to be the longest book club today. But again, thank you all so much. And getting in there, thanks to Idiot Win. Appreciate the hell out of that. And then right after, boom, after that, Pammy coming through here. A $1.99, that's a $2 holla. Hopping on the back of that choo-choo train, the money train, baby. Thank you so much, Pammy. Another person that has been absolutely amazing throughout a long-ass time. Pammy's always coming through. Incredible person. And I'm glad and lucky to have her in the Buzz Nation as well. Boom, True Crime Butterfly. Filling this thing up tonight, guys. Wow. True Crime Butterfly getting a first spot on this wheel with a $2 holler. Thank you so much. My God. The Buzz Nation don't stop, baby. Thank you, guys. Seriously.
I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, you can infer that
Appreciate
Mr. De Souza was about to say, I think I heard.
Love it.
I killed someone, but he was not sure.
Hell yeah.
But today, those 3 words morphed into the certainty of 5 words. I think I killed someone, or shot someone. Or was it, someone's been killed? Or was it, she's been killed? Or was it, I think someone's been killed? Or was it, I think she's been killed? His uncertainty was manifested on day one.
Damn, Wildside came through too with a $2 holla. Woo, woo, woo. Chug, 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 chug. Well, I actually typed woo, woo instead of Wildside. Thank you so much, Wildside. Absolute G around these parts. Wildside's been in the Buzz Nation for so damn long. I mean, my God, she's been incredible. Always incredible. Thank you so much, Wildside. Appreciate that. Where are we at on the new wheel? Damn.
When he said to Investigator Fournier on February 3rd,
8. Already 8 on a new wheel. Shit.
Sir Bruin on ass, talking about the transcript
so
that
nice.
was recorded that Mr. DeSouza did not know was being recorded. Reading what again? He says, and you say, I think I killed somebody? Fournier, I killed somebody? DeSouza, yeah, somebody. Fournier, okay. DeSouza, I think so. I'm not sure it's my English. That was on the first day. I'm not sure it's my English.
She makes.
This is
she knows how to drive home a point and make a good point. I mean,
no one ever heard about it.
Damn.
Until
holy
we brought
shit,
it to
Holly
you.
Berry coming through. $2 holla as well. The beautiful people of the Buzz Nation don't quit, baby. Holy cow. Making this thing incredible here tonight. Every night. Are you kidding me? Every single show that I have here is just, I'm blown away by the kindness of these people, of my people, of the Buzz Nation, of the crew. Rolling in deep, baby. Holy shit. We may get a double wheel here tonight, Simi. And Gabby coming through. I think we're only 2 away now, thanks to Gabby just now. $2 holler. Gabby, man, all of you guys. Oh, my Lord. I don't even know what to say. This is incredible. You guys are the best, seriously. Train is a rolling. Choo-choo! Thank you guys, seriously.
In trial.
My Lord.
Including the coroner. What he had was a statement of DeSouza expressing certainty.
Damn.
Let's go back and look at the transcript. And can we, Jen, go to, if we put the Barbara Nelson quote, is that possible? That you had before? Thank you. This was involving a question I asked Ms. Nelson. Had you heard about the contradictory statement of Mr. DeSouza where he said he wasn't sure? Because she heard about the statement that Mr. DeSouza said that Mr. Spector said, I shot somebody or I killed somebody or whatever it was. And she didn't. And if you had, hypothetically, another statement was contradictory, which I think, I'm not sure, is contradictory, would you have wanted to know that? Yes. Yes. Any trained investigator would want to know of a contradictory statement, especially made the same day, that says, I think, I'm not sure. Because the words I'm not sure deserve as much credibility, and they are just as important as the words, well, maybe he said this. I am not sure.
Holy shit. I think that we've got it. I think Pammy just started a new wheel. Oh my goodness. Let me just make sure here. Make sure I'm not messing that up. Jen coming through here. We ain't got no quit. That's the damn truth. And then Gabby coming through, $2 right after that. Can't stop, won't stop. Woo, woo! And let me just see if that's it. I think that's a wheel, and then we'll start Pammy with a new one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That is right. We have 2 wheels ready to rock. So we'll do the first wheel immediately after this in the next 25 minutes or so, and then I will do the next wheel after the next hour. So hell yeah, Pammy. Thank you so much as well, coming through here with a $2 holla. Boom. Buzz Nation going wild tonight in the chat.
Very important words.
This is awesome.
When all you have in a case
They see me
that
rolling.
allegedly connects Philip Spector directly to any shooting are those words of Adriana DeSouza. Even more importantly, I want you to go through and look at the transcript once more.
Holy shit. True Crime Butterfly. Just look what I started. Oh my goodness. This is incredible. I'm just gonna say right now, you guys are flooding. I feel like a stripper right now. I'm just up here. I'm just Let's get some dancing going in. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my God. Gabby coming through right after $2 more. Someone passed the Grey Poupon. Woo, woo. Oh, my goodness. What is even happening? I really do feel like a stripper right now. I'm about to start. My OnlyFans will be up later tonight. Holy cow.
Transcript prepared by the DA's office.
What's up, Brooklyn? Get in
with
here.
a quote, and
I started
quote,
early
"I think
tonight.
I killed her."
Trying to get through all of the closings. I got 3 more hours left. Less than that now, of course, about 2 hours and so. But trying to get this. I want to get
Take the
this
quotes out.
trial done this week, by next Tuesday.
And then he opened the door, and I think I killed her. There's no attribution.
Holy cow! Wildside with another $2. Damn. Okay, yeah, we have started officially a third wheel right now. Goodness gracious, man. All right. 2 is in the books. 2 will be spun on the air tonight. So, holy crap. Pammy, dancing, stripping. Okay, then. Woo! I'm about to get up out of this chair, and y'all ain't even know what y'all done started now. Holy crap. I know Pammy wants it. Pammy's ready for it.
To Mr. Spector, saying that.
Jeez.
Unless
nuts.
you or somebody who types the transcript.
It didn't Phil
puts
Spector with
the
a bang,
quotes
I'll tell you what. Damn, that
And
was
the-
no pun intended. That was horrible.
And you
Oh,
heard
Jesus.
yesterday the call to Michelle Blaine. There was no indication that Mr. Spector came out and said, "I shot somebody," or "I think I killed somebody." And it's not even here. You listen to the tape. And then he opened the door, and I think I killed her. And if you look at what's said objectively, when there's no quotes, was he saying he thinks he killed her but he didn't know? Or was he mixing up his pronouns of I? Because you heard him at trial, and he mixed up his pronouns, and we're going to show you a lot of that in a bit. He mixed up I, he, she, and a lot of words. And we're going to show you a sampling of some of those in a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. DeSouza had the classic problems of any witness, whether it be an ear witness or an eyewitness in a stressful situation.
Bassett Page said, "Let me get on that thing." Bassett Page is now officially on the third wheel. Fuck yeah, Bassett. Thank you so much. Got you on here with 150, baby. I see you. I see you coming through here and giving me a black kitty. There's a black cat that hangs out in my neighborhood that I would love to have. I can't have it. I have 2 kitties that would probably not be very happy, but man, I like this guy a lot. This morning when I was leaving, after I woke up, he was out in the middle of the road sunbathing. I think he's a homeless dude. Last year, I don't think he has anywhere to really go. He was one of the reasons I made that thing for the porch last year to see if during the winter. I don't know if he even used it or officially used it, but it was something maybe he could get into. But yeah, thank you so much, Bassett. I appreciate that. Jesse Jean coming through. Oh, I think hold on. I broke my chat. Hold on.
Simply mistaken.
Got to refresh.
And he told you he wasn't
You guys
sure
broke my chat.
on day
Yes.
1. 5 little
Incredible.
words, only one of which that could be so easily misheard, that makes the total difference in this case. And all you need is one word transposed and one word misheard from his native Portuguese language.
Boom! Tick, tick, boom! Stripper time! Oh, God, I've done talked about it now. You know what? If I ever did do it, you would just go over to Kick. We'll just all head over to Kick. We'll have have a moment there. Thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate it.
DeSouza,
Y'all are
rightfully
insane.
so, was fatigued after working hard for 24 hours. He talked about the air conditioning unit running, and the radio was playing in the car.
Susan,
and there was
welcome in.
opera, as you've heard, in the background of the house. And the fountain was playing.
And we're going to spin a wheel right after this.
Now, you were at the house. Fortunately, I wasn't with you that day.
Hey, accept
So,
that. That's
I leave it to
amazing.
your
You guys are
judgment
flooding me with loot.
as to
Incredible.
the fountain loudness
I can't
and
even
the
believe
noise for the confusion of
Flood me
maybe
with loot,
one
baby.
word being mistaken. And he'd just woken up from a sleep. Mr. Sousa was shocked at seeing the body. Okay, in any event, you heard a sound that startled you, right? Yes, and you woke up. Yes. Mrs. Sousa was shocked
Did
at
sound
seeing
like
the
a
body. He told you previously he didn't understand. He told you in this courtroom, when Philip Spector was, quote, drunk because he mumbled all the time, even though in the few times he had driven him, he'd never seen him drunk before. He told the cops he couldn't understand him when he's drunk and he mumbles. That's what he said, not us. Yet according to Mr. Sousa, Philip Spector, you heard the testimony, was clearly drunk that evening. He admitted he had a language problem. English as a second language affects the comprehension of a person in a highly stressful situation. Even 4 years later, he mixes up his pronouns. Remember back, you'll look at your notes, when he used the word she, when he meant he, and look at that and others. Yes, she had like a briefcase, like a leather bag. She has a leather, it's like a brown light briefcase. He was talking about Mr. Spector's briefcase. What was he wearing? He uses the word beige suit instead of jacket, a one-word mistake. It's female. I think it's like
Those are
blonde
killing me.
hair instead of she's female. Another misuse of the word, because I opened his door and he got stuck in the door and he was looking to this guy. He looks like upset, talking about an alleged incident. What did Miss Clarkson do? He went to her car and we followed her until like a street closed to the parking structure. And then she went to her car. Oh, another misuse of the word. Ultimately, did you give Mr. Spector that valise? Yes. How did you give it to him? Did you place it inside the house? Yes, I gave it to him. I think the DVD, and I placed the wallet in the chair instead of the valise on the chair. Again, using the word beige suit for a white jacket. From his transcript, sir, basically each year you have to serve a little bit English in school rather than be taught. Take a little bit of English in school. At the end of 3 years, did you get any kind of certificate or did they give you a test to test your proficiency? No, I didn't make any tests instead of take any tests.
You guys are cracking me up
I
tonight.
assume this is in response to a question Mr. Jackson asked you that each time you told the officers about that incident, you wanted it to be accurate and complete. Is that correct? Yeah. If they're recording or saying
It's
to me
fine.
that I'm recording, it's future. Yes,
Nosey's
I'm
going
doing
in
that.
on Linda.
Mix up of the English. Well, November 2002, there was like the first job that I made for them. Talking about Mr. Spector. Did you ever pay for gas? I think I made once a long time ago. A misuse of the English. Yeah, he didn't like me. He was upset with me. Misuse of the English. Volume 19. Yes, I remember that he said he was working like the whole night and needs a drink. Talking about Lana Clarkson. Uses the word he instead of she. Mr. Brunon asked him, could we get a transcript? All right, you see this here? Mr. Pineda is asking, at what point does Mr. Spector say, I think I shot her?
Wild side, giving a hot dog out. Damn, I think I know what she's saying there. Wild side with another 150. Thank you, Wildside. I appreciate that. Boom. Get you on here. I think that makes us 4 away from a third will, which is insane
And
already.
Mr. Sousa, when talking about the transcript, when she, I think you meant when he opened the door, when he opened the door. But see, he said when she opened the door. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at this quote here, can you be sure? Would the coroner's investigators like to know that Mr. D'Souza said on day one that he had a problem with his English and he wasn't sure? Would you have liked to know whether he mixes up his pronouns? Would you have liked to know any of that before you accepted and bought into his story and called Philip Spector a murderer? Your Honor, would this be a good place to break? I have
How much more?
about an hour.
I'll probably like 2 hours.
All right, I want to see counsel
Let's be
afterwards.
real.
Keep in mind the admonition, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we got some stuff going on immediately after
9
this.
o'clock tomorrow morning.
Damn, True Crime Butterfly with an ice cream for $1.50.
The jurors and the
Thank you,
alternates
True Crime.
have left. Just inquiring, if Ms. Kenny Bodden takes an hour tomorrow and we start at 9, is that enough time for you to finish
Jersey
tomorrow?
Jen, I will gift my win for anyone that has never won. Dude, Jersey Jen's incredible. She's so fucking nice, dude. Thank you, Jen.
Yes, Mr. Dixon?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I going to have I need about 30
She
minutes,
gives away
30, 40
so
minutes
much.
to instruct. Am I going to have enough time to instruct?
I think so.
Okay, we'll see. If not, Monday. All right.
Judge, there's a couple of issues that we can take up.
Two
tomorrow
more
morning.
till
I'll
the
probably just
third
get my
wheel.
thoughts together. I
Holy
can be a little
crap,
bit more
on a
precise and
Tuesday.
approach it tomorrow morning. If
Okay.
you want to
I want to hand down the instructions, but there's a couple things I want to verify in my own mind. On
Lot more
Calgit
than that.
371, consciousness of guilt, suppression of evidence. What was your theory on that again? I've got so much. Okay.
Dude, it's so much.
Is we consider it fabrication or suppression, I guess?
fabrication of evidence, manipulating the crime
Okay,
scene.
all right.
Alternative B.
Yes, that's the one we're giving, but I just wanted to make sure before I hand it.
Wildside, even if you don't win, I can send you a coaster. You've been a real one forever, man. If you don't win one, I'll get you a coaster.
Down.
That's for sure.
I need to ask you. It has to do with a lot
got
of
some
the. It
coasters
has to
for
do
you.
with one of the defense special instructions. It has to do with the personally used a firearm.
Boom, Pammy, $1.99. That's only one away. One away. Holy crap, Pammy. Thank you very much. And there it is. That's a third wheel. Holy shnikes. True Crime finishing that thing off with another $2 holla. Jeez, guys. Holy cow. Holy cow.
Part of your theory, and I know we've discussed
That's
it about
crazy.
how Mr.
I
Spector
can't
is
believe
responsible under your theory of the case, and
Oh,
did he
yeah, nuts
actually
tonight.
place the gun in her mouth? Is it some other? Are there other possibilities? Can you
Thank
give
you
me
all so
some
much.
indication? Because that has to do with how these instructions are worded.
Well, the way that I've argued it, the way that I argued it yesterday, and I would just stay consistent with this, is our theory of the case is that he had control of the gun, that he knowingly and intentionally pointed it at her face, that through that conduct of pointing it at her, it ended up in her mouth. I mean, there's no way of knowing whether he said, "Open your mouth," or she screamed and the gun ended up in her mouth, or she began to talk and the gun ended up in her mouth, or if she was just frightened and it ended up in her mouth. But his hand was on that gun when it ended up in her mouth and went off.
Okay.
And that's as detailed as I think we can get, and that's as detailed as we need to get for purposes of second-degree murder.
That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
The personal use of a firearm, the way it had been submitted, someone personally uses a firearm if he intentionally fires the firearm. Now the question is, there's other alternatives where that use is still acceptable, which also includes displaying it in a menacing manner. Are you want in or out on that?
Displaying it in a menacing manner.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Our theory, again, consistently being that we don't have to prove that he intentionally pulled the trigger.
Okay.
Holy crap. Susan started another will. Susan Lupo came through the Cash App with a $2 holler saying, enjoying the stream tonight. Susan, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And I know that Susan is getting hyped up about Charlie Adelson's trial again. Should start next Tuesday night, folks.
Okay, now.
Right here, season 6.
The
But first, we got to get through this one.
defense has submitted
We're getting
some
close.
supplemental, now they're, as they're going by numbering, the supplemental
Oh
instruction.
my God. Jessica for Justice also getting on the 4th wheel that we've started tonight. Holy shit, Jessica. With a 99-cent for the 99th episode. $1 holla. Thank you so much, Jessica. I appreciate the shit out of that. Holy cow.
One, which is their pinpoint
I love it.
instruction about causing Miss Clarkson's death. And again, Mr. Reardon, we're back to the problem. I don't know if you're aware of what my problem with this instruction and all its variations is, and that's why I asked Mr. Jackson and Mr. Dixon what their theory was. They're not saying that and under the law, they're right, that he placed the gun in her mouth, and therefore this instruction is an incorrect statement of the law.
Well, Your Honor, could I respond?
You may.
Your Honor, there is a difference between what in the abstract would be required and what is required once an accusation is made in a case and a theory is presented. In opening, Mr. Jackson said he placed this gun in her mouth. As a result of that, Your Honor, you made a critical ruling, and the specific basis for it was the evidence is that this gun was so deep in her mouth that, even if it went off accidentally, putting a gun that deep in someone's mouth is a reckless act with a reckless disregard for life, and therefore there can't be any lessers in this case. We absolutely agree. The prosecution's theory is that he puts the gun in the mouth and it goes off. That's second-degree murder. If the prosecution's theory, for the first time, they've never articulated this before, is that Mr. Spector was not responsible for inserting that gun in her mouth, we have a whole different panoply of lesser includeds that we didn't contemplate because they had a single theory and they were clear in that regard. They promised this, they stated that that was their theory. They have never said that this was a case where he brandished the gun outside of her mouth and then somehow it went off. If that was the case, you'd be instructing on lessers. So I'm just now following what Mr. Jackson said. If they want to say that he caused the act that caused the death, well, I hear there has to be an act.
Pammy, keeping it
We're
moving.
entitled to know the act,
$2. Thank you,
certainly at this
Pammy.
hour. I hear them saying is that the
Holy
act
shit.
that he committed
Put on a fourth
was
wheel right now.
putting the gun in her mouth.
That's crazy.
And we agree that if they prove that, they have, there are no other questions in terms of a second-degree murder. But if they're going to the jury on the theory that unlike their opening, he is responsible for her death without inserting this gun in their mouth, we are back to reopening the whole can of worms on lesser included.
Well, maybe yes and maybe no. Mere brandishing, I would agree with you. We have a whole different set of facts. Putting a gun in someone's face is not brandishing. That goes beyond brandishing. I'm just saying we have to find out specifically what they're going to argue, and that's why I need to know that. But that is not merely brandishing. But go ahead.
Your Honor, I don't know where Mr. Reardon is getting it. It sounds like they're having second thoughts. They didn't like the way that the law reads. They didn't like the way that the arguments come out. Now they're having second thoughts, and they're trying to figure out a way to get some lessers in. Mr. Reardon and I never had a conversation about how deep in Lana Clarkson's mouth Mr. Spector put the gun. So that's coming out of thin air. I don't know what he's talking about. Mr. Reardon has either, I would hope that he's gotten up to speed on what the theory of our liability
Well, let's get by the deepness that the gun. Let's just talk about what exactly.
Judge, my point is, can I just say?
Yes, you may.
Jessica, give me another black cat. Y'all are talking that black cat outside. I'm telling you right now. Thank you,
Our
Jessica.
theory is, and I don't know how else to articulate it any more clearly, I guess, is that Philip Spector pointed that loaded weapon, knowingly and intentionally, at her face, at the most vulnerable part of her body, the face, the brain, that area. And he pointed it in a threatening and menacing manner. And somehow that gun that he's pointing at her face intentionally, the tip of it behind the front sight gets inside her mouth. That's it, plain and simple. Whether she screamed and it gets in there, I don't know. But I know that his hand was on the gun, and it makes no difference legally. This is not an involuntary manslaughter, and this is a murder. I mean, that inch doesn't make any difference. The act that contemplates implied malice is pointing the weapon, or pointing the weapon, or pointing the weapon in her face. That's our theory.
Okay, Mr. Reardon?
Your Honor, the government expressly argued in opening, and I will give the...
They're not bound by their opening statement.
Okay.
That's clear.
The basis on which we agreed that there would not be lesser included is that the insertion of a gun in someone's mouth is so clearly not only an act dangerous to human life, but one that any human being would know involves a conscious disregard for human life, that absent some affirmative evidence of intoxication or lack of mental state, and the defendant testifying to that it removes the mental state element from the case, and therefore there are no lessers. The people have never, until closing argument, never articulated a theory that this gun was held outside of Miss Clarkson's mouth. If that
Wait,
is
they did. They talked about it when we had our conference before the argument, because that's where they started to talk about the variations and about the possibility of what second-degree murder consisted of. That's what we were talking about. So they did articulate a theory before their final argument. Clearly they did.
But, Your Honor, if someone holds...
Holy cow, guys. Oh, my God. You guys are cracking me up, first of all, tonight. Oh, my God. Idiot Win coming through here with a $10 holler continuing. We may, if we get four wheel, I don't think we've ever had four wheels in a night. Honestly, that's crazy. That's insane. Idiot Win, thank you so much. Your generosity is felt. I love that. Thank you so much. Incredible. Wildside, $3. Throwing them up, baby. Throwing them up. Wildside's still coming through here. Really trying to get that coaster. And like I said, I'll get you a coaster either way. I'm going to get you a coaster either way, Wildside. But thank you so much for that. And even after that, I saw Susan come back through here. She meant to send $20. So she sent another one. She said $20 through the Cash App. Oops, hit the wrong button. Holy cow. What an insane night. Finishing this one out strong. Holy cow, guys. And also, you're cracking me the hell up with these jokes.
A gun outside someone's face, and it goes off, and they said in closing there's an earthquake.
Well, we decided that's not applicable. We talked about the law yesterday, and that's not applicable because there's an intervening event, which ends up being a superseding event.
But if they did that and the gun somehow went off, it would be a question of fact for the jury whether someone in that instance had a conscious disregard or merely did a highly dangerous act negligently. The reason why this is clearly a second or nothing is that the prosecution's theory has been that the gun was placed in the mouth, which is clearly an act that meets the definition of implied malice if Mr. Spector committed it, which he contends he did not. But the contention that the act is simply putting it in front of someone's face, as opposed to the theory that it was placed in the mouth, then raises questions. Then there'd be questions of fact for the jury about whether the implied malice, the conscious disregard for life, as opposed to gross negligence, was present. We believe they're not in the case because we believe that this has always been a case of that he put the gun in the mouth or he didn't.
Okay. Well, if you want to find some case that would support that as a matter of law, that I have to give it if they go with the theory that it was in front of her face, either he pointed it in her face and it ended up in her mouth, or he placed it in her mouth, that with either one of those theories, and you're primarily concerned with the first, that you are then possibly entitled to lesser included, you let me know. You find the case. Because that, to me, is an assault with a deadly weapon. I agree with you. If all you have is brandishing, brandishing gets you anywhere from second-degree murder all the way down to misdemeanor manslaughter because of the nature of the act of brandishing. But what Mr. Jackson and Mr. Dixon are describing is an assault with a deadly weapon, which is inherently dangerous. Placing a gun in front of somebody's face, that's inherently dangerous. Okay? So the
Your
question
Honor,
is, if you want to get around the malice argument, find me a case.
No, I don't. We don't want to get around
Well,
the malice.
okay.
But I think we may be able to clarify this, Your Honor, because I think Mr. Jackson said that somehow the gun.
Shit, Bassett, gonna
and
keep her
they're not
rolling.
limited-
Thank you,
they're
Bassett, for
saying
$1.
they're not limited to initially and intentional placing. But I think their theory
Hey.
is that he is responsible for getting the gun into her mouth while his finger remains on the trigger. And if that's the case, then we'll ask for a special instruction. That'll then be the theory of the case. If they find that gun enters her mouth with his finger on the trigger, then essentially we agree that it's second-degree murder, but the government would have the burden of proving their fact. The essential fact they'd have to prove is that that gun is in her mouth with his finger on the trigger.
Okay, thank you. At the present time, then, Special 1 is refused because it's not their theory of the case. The facts that you've set forth in instruction do not set forth all the theories, so I'm going to refuse it. You can keep trying.
He's gonna too, probably.
Including you, though, you're running out
No,
you're running short on time is the only thing.
I understand your, well, I think we're developing, we have a developing script here. We will
Okay.
respond to it as quickly as it develops.
All right. Supplemental Defense Instruction 2 reads as follows.
I apologize for the depose.
I don't care about that. If you find that the investigators or experts from the prosecution lost or mishandled evidence, you may consider that fact in evaluating whether the defendant had a full and fair opportunity to present his defense. Do you wish to be heard?
Judge, I don't know what the basis for
The
the...
theory is that you lost some evidence. There's no malice, there's no bad faith, there's no violation of law.
Right.
It's merely that evidence is lost, and how does that affect their case?
Right, and I don't think that there's any evidence that it has affected their case. If there was some evidence that it has affected
For
their
the
case...
jury, the question is, are they entitled?
Well, Judge, one-
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, did I? Did somebody say something? I hope not. I thought I heard something.
No, that was me chuckling because they haven't shown prejudice on either Henry Lee or Bodden, and it
Okay.
just,
We'll set aside the chuckle momentarily.
Well, the
Oh, he's coming back to the chuckle. Look at his face. Oh, shit. Look at him. Shit-eating grin on there.
Okay.
The one thing that the court did ask and made sure of is that there was testimony from Dr. Harold.
They'll never
concerning,
stop trying.
What effect...
I mean, that's their job.
That missing piece of evidence from Dr. Henry Lee could have or might have had on her analysis. And so that evidence, that was where the court kind of guided us in making a determination as to whether or not the jury's even informed of it. There has not been the concomitant or the associated effect on the other side. They had the photographs. I guess I'm confused about what they're saying.
Well, what they're saying
witness.
is we were deprived of some evidence because, if you will, carelessness of the investigators. So we don't know what we could have analyzed. The bottom line is it did happen. It's a pinpoint instruction.
Sure, I understand.
It's just saying they lost something. You're free to argue. Mr. Dixon has the final argument. Ms. Kenny Bodden hasn't finished as to whether there's any,
This is my favorite
Right,
judge.
basically.
I'm going to miss
I wanna give
him.
it.
Submitted.
I'm going to miss this judge.
When you type it up for me, there's also another one where I put a note, put historical heading. That means put the box at the top. You have to use the right form.
As
Yeah,
okay.
okay? So I'm going to give this one. Okay,
with the, may I inquire of counsel, Judge?
yes.
Mr. Reardon, did we want to discuss the gun?
That's the next one I think that you...
Yeah, we're just about to get there. I just want to wrap these up because I am going to hand these down, and so that we can start to reproduce them, and then eventually all we have to do is staple
Almost
them
to
together.
the next hour here.
For
Almost to a
everybody.
will
We'll
spin.
make as
That's what
many-
we're about
figure
to
out as
do.
many. We need 18 copies for the jurors. The original is for me, 2 for the prosecution, as many as you want for the defense, 1 for the public, which will be to the press so they can reproduce it. We'll have a copy for the clerk. Just 1 second while I put this one in here. While we're doing that, number 3, the so-called Cox instruction.
I think we may have agreement on that, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm listening. Talk to me.
I'll go ahead and read it. The proposed instruction that the people have sort of spoken off the record with Mr. Reardon about is there has been evidence admitted in this trial of other guns recovered from the defendant's home. This evidence was admitted for the limited purpose of determining ownership of the Colt Cobra People's 26. The fact that the defendant may have owned or possessed other guns may not be considered as evidence that he committed the crime charged. That's with regard to the revolvers, and as I read that, it just dawned on me that the shotgun was admitted for the limited purpose of corroborating a specific
three
witness's
more,
testimony,
thanks to Bassett
she being
Page.
Dorothy Melvin,
Thank you,
so I should
Bassett.
probably add that
It should be
language.
added in the instruction. Are the parties in agreement as to that?
Yes, sir.
All right,
I'll add it tonight.
put it out. Okay, that's it. I'll see you at 8:30 tomorrow to discuss any issues.
Okay.
Okay?
Holy crap. So the next day, what is this? Hold on. Holy shit. Outside the presence of the jury. Oh my God. I guess I missed this one. We're still not even done. They're still going to be bitching here for the next little bit. Oh my Lord. All right. We're going to do this. So all right. I don't know if we will get through all 3 hours of Linda tonight. I don't know. That's running really long. We may start that on Thursday, then get into may finish all of this out Sunday. We may go all day Sunday. I don't know. But we are about to go into another outside the presence of the jury. Either way, 30 more minutes here, and then we'll do another Linda. So, and then Pam just come through the Cash App with another $10. Holy shit. So we've almost got a fourth wheel, which is insane. But let's get our first wheel going. My God. You guys this has been crazy. This has been insane here tonight. Did I miss another one? I did. True Crime Butterfly, 149. All right, let's get this one out of the way. Oh, my Lord. I can't even keep up. This is going to be a good one. Good luck. Ooh, that is J Money. J Money. I don't think he's in here tonight. He comes through on Sunday mornings. But J Money picking up the first victory for again some magnets, coaster, and a sticker. J Money. Congratulations, sir. Nice. And again, thanks to everyone coming through here. Everyone's being incredible here tonight. People are incredible here and every night, man. The Buzz Nation, don't stop, won't stop. Put him down here so I don't lose my place. And again, I got another wheel to immediately fill out right now. And Bassett Page just put another 150 on the new wheel, the fourth wheel we're building here. Holy crap. And let me see where that's at. Hold on. New wheel, fourth wheel. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10, 11. We're one away from a fourth wheel here tonight. Oh my God. I wish I could. Court TV doesn't have that feature. I wish we could do that. Oh my Lord. I don't even know what to say right now. This is crazy. Oh my God. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling out another one. And yeah, we're going to keep rolling here outside the presence of the jury. Damn.
The record will reflect that the counsel for both sides are present. Mr. Spector is absent pursuant to 977.
Where the hell's Phil at right now?
There are some matters we need to take up before I get into legal matters. I want to talk a little bit about
Congrats, J Money.
an inquiry that's been made through the court information officer, Mr. Perricchini, to me concerning whether admonitions to witnesses not to discuss this matter is going to continue once the matter is submitted to the jury, and the answer is
there
yes,
it is. Holy shit. Bassett Page. Wow. $4 to finish out the fourth wheel that we are going to spin here tonight. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my God, guys. I am. I have to strip. I have to actually show skin. I feel like that I am being forced. No. Idiot win $10 after that starting. Guess what? Another freaking wheel here tonight. Oh, my God. Guys. Woo! We're on to 5. That's right. Holy crap. Choo-choo! Lord almighty, guys. Thank you all so much.
Until there is
Let's
a
get the
verdict,
second one
if
going.
there is a verdict in this case, then the admonition to witnesses
My
remains.
God.
If there is a verdict, then that admonition will be lifted. if,
Like,
for
I'm
any
in
reason,
actual shock.
although I don't think any of us particularly want that
I feel so, like I am.
possibility, but it's a reality.
so
If there is a
lucky.
hung jury, it is my intention to continue the order, not only to witnesses, but potential witnesses, and we'll figure out a mechanism to do that. Rather than call each individual potential witness or witness before me to do that, what we've done in the past is both sides admirably
And this video
have
snuck up
discussed
on
it
me.
with
I
their
thought we were gonna
respective
have all
witnesses or
Linda.
potential witnesses and instructed them that they're under an obligation not to discuss their testimony or potential testimony. And right now, that admonition, which is a standard admonition in all trials, will continue until I lift it. And again, if there's a verdict, it will be lifted, and if there's not, we'll concern ourselves at that time. Now, we have an additional problem, and that's been brought to my attention today, and I'm going to make this
What's the new problem?
statement, and I hope that everybody who it applies to is listening to it. I don't like gag orders. I've never imposed a formal gag order in my life. Other than the normal and customary witness admonition, that's all I do. If the attorneys wish to talk to the press, they can, though I admonish them. I would prefer that they not, and that the case be tried in the courtroom, and that applies
Second
to
will
all
ready.
participants. And the
Of 4.
participants in this trial have been exemplary, and other than basic passing comments on occasion, which are, to my mind, perfectly appropriate. They have simply self-imposed my request.
Oh my
or
God,
taken my
Gabby.
request and made it
Keeping 5 alive.
a manner of conduct for them. And when I say the participants in the trial, I mean their family members too. And if there are family members who are going to decide that they want to serve as surrogates and basically get an individual's position out to the press, then I'm going to reconsider my normal feeling about
Holy
gag orders.
cow.
And everybody who's seated here knows exactly who I'm talking about. I've discussed the matter with counsel. I'm going to leave it at that for right now. But I'm getting a little tired of people giving interviews and attempting, hopefully, in my mind, to do nothing.
Now, the media on this was insane. So, yeah, you can just imagine everybody just biting their lip, wanting to get on court TV at the time, I'm sure. I don't think there was law and crime at that time. And now that's just flooded with, everyone's got a true crime thing, YouTubers, yada, yada. But back then, there was still, everyone, this was a hot-ass trial as well. Incredibly famous. So everyone's wanting to speak, and, Judge Dowhart's like, nah.
But to sway the jury, even though they're under an admonition not to watch television or read news reports
It's
about this
CH.
case, there is always the danger that it might happen. And I'm not blaming, this is not directed to any attorney, not for a minute. This is directed to some individuals who are not using common sense. And if they don't have the
I'm
self-discipline
blown
to
away.
use common sense, then I will
Oh
take
my God,
appropriate
Gabby.
action. And I think that's all that I need to say.
Thank you so
All right?
much.
Thank you very much. Now, let's talk about...
Thank you very much.
We left off yesterday talking about whether there's any evidence and exactly what the people could argue that might in some way mandate the giving of some lesser instructions. And just so Mr. Spector is now present. I think I've stated what the law is, just to make it clear. The theories...
Yeah, I read that in that article that you sent, Nosy. He probably is talking to Phil's wife, who, chomping at the bit to talk to the media.
Have been presented by both sides. Both sides have pretty much up to this point agreed or stipulated that the only appropriate instruction is that of second-degree murder with no lessers. As I believe I've made clear, and if I have not, I'm not bound by that. If the evidence suggests, whether or not the parties don't want me to give lessers, if there is a reasonable suggestion by the evidence that lessers be given, if there's some
Gabby's going to take this will
substantial
up.
evidence, reasonable evidence that the jury can consider, it doesn't make any difference what the parties or I think about it. It's whether there's something that they should consider.
Damn,
At this
Gabby.
point, I haven't heard it, and I think that's what we're in agreement. Basically, the question is whether there's any evidence that would suggest, other than a disregard, the instructions for second-degree murder, conscious disregard of human life that
What
is set
is
forth
happening?
in Cal Crim 520, and just so that we have the specific language.
Jessica. Thank you all so freaking much.
And it would be with, basically under implied malice that he deliberately acted with conscious disregard for human life. Now, the theory is obviously if the gun was placed directly in the mouth, There is no possible theory that I can see that it's other than conscious disregard for human life. You couldn't come to any brandishing or anything else. The people's theory, as I understand it, and basically has been presented through the evidence that I'm allowing under 1101B, which is that Mr. Spector acted in accordance with motive, which is that when faced with a certain
We're only 3 away from a
situation,
fifth
he
wheel.
emotionally responds by placing a gun to somebody's
Oh
face.
my God.
There's been no testimony he ever placed it in the mouth. That's not necessary. It's basically placing it at the side of the head along with certain threats. In my view, and I'm willing to hear anything that the parties have to say,
This is an insane train
as long as the
ride.
people keep the evidence to a gun pointed at the head, okay, then there is no other theory that's applicable. If it ever gets away where the gun is waving in the air, which becomes a brandishing, that opens up involuntary manslaughter. So I think what it depends upon, because this had to do with your pinpoint instruction, Mr. Reardon, that you submitted to the court, and why I did not accept it, because you kept saying gun in the mouth. It doesn't have to be gun in the mouth. But it can't get off track to where it's something other than an act, which is basically an assault with a deadly weapon, which is an inherently dangerous felony. And it depends on what they argue. And I'm putting the people on notice. If your argument goes off track, then we have a different situation, and the court's going to have to deal with it. Mr. Reardon.
Yes, Your Honor, and a discussion and it'll shape the renewed request for a pinpoint instruction. Your Honor, I could not agree more with the court that this is a case where lesser includeds are not required and not justified. And that is because the people's theory throughout the case has been that Mr. Spector committed the act that caused the death of Miss Clarkson. The act, there's no question that the evidence here establishes what the act was that caused the death of Miss Clarkson. The act that caused the death of Miss Clarkson was a shot being fired from a pistol which was in her mouth. No one could possibly say that any other act caused the death. It was an intraoral wound that caused the death. And the people's position has been very explicitly that Mr.
Holy cow. All right. 5 wheels. I still got 4 wheels to spin, guys. Oh, my Lord. I don't even know what to say right. Oh, my God. Gabby just started a 6th wheel. What is happening, Gabby? Oh, my Lord. Gabby is out and about tonight, dude. Lord.
Spector placed that gun in her mouth and initially shot her. And all we were trying to do with
She's
our
ready to go.
Sears instruction, our pinpoint instruction, which we're entitled to, was say that this is a case where we're not contesting intent, we're not claiming alibi.
Share this one more time.
We're claiming that he did not do the act that caused the death of Miss Clarkson. So the initial request that I made was that the people's contention is that he placed the gun in the mouth and shot her, because I lifted those words from Mr. Jackson's opening argument. I didn't think that was controversial and asked for a pinpoint. The government came back and said, well, wait a minute. I believe the use of the word shoot would make it sound like it has to be an intentional firing. And there's evidence in this case from experts that she could have slapped at the gun, or even if he put the gun in the mouth and it went off accidentally, that would be second-degree murder.
The wheel is back with a vengeance. Let that be known.
And therefore, the instruction that you're giving unfairly limits our options as to the actus reus. And I said, I agree with that. Okay. Let us remove any language which would suggest that you have to prove an intentional shooting as opposed to a slap, an accident once the gun is in there. So my second supplemental instruction, which I submitted, was the people's contention is that he placed the gun in the mouth of Lana Clarkson. And
wow.
If they prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, it's going to be a second-degree murder. If they don't prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, the placing of the gun, then there has to be an acquittal. As I understand it, Your Honor, what the people objected to then was the notion that even the placing has to be intentional. And if he were to point the gun at her mouth and the gun were to go in accidentally, that would serve as a sufficient actus reus, because if you point at somebody's a gun at somebody's mouth and it goes into their mouth, the act of pointing it at their mouth is so dangerous that you bear the consequences if it goes into their mouth and goes off. And I agree with
Or at their face. It doesn't have to go in their mouth.
That. I think that's a fair position. I think that they can argue it. And therefore, our pinpoint instruction now is that...
Which one are you referring to?
Well, I'm about to... I've handed this to the...
I don't have it yet, okay.
Yeah, I handed this to the prosecution. I'll hand it to the court. And this is an attempt to conform the language to the theory that the prosecution offers and is entitled to offer. And as I understand it, it is the prosecution's contention that the act committed by the defendant that caused the death of Miss Clarkson was his pointing a pistol at her, resulting in that pistol entering Miss Clarkson's mouth while in Mr. Spector's hand. So this is fine. The defense theory is that he did not point a pistol at her, and he did not point it at her mouth. If they prove that he pointed a pistol at her mouth, the pistol entered her mouth while in his hand and went off, then they've proved second-degree murder. I would think that the only objection to this instruction would be, no, actually, it is our theory that if he pointed the pistol at her, he is guilty of murder even if she put the gun in the mouth and shot herself. So if he pointed a pistol at her and she wrested the pistol away, put the gun in her mouth and shot herself, either intentionally or unintentionally, he is guilty of murder if his hand is not even on that gun. And on that, Your Honor, the people are not entitled to argue that theory. They are not entitled...
Are they saying that the possibility of him initially pulling gun out and putting it in her face or in mouth, and she yanks it away from him, and now she's the one that's doing it? Like,
entitled to argue that theory, not...
I think the defense theories are a little bit all over the place. They're both, she did it to herself and she accidentally did it to herself. Like, purposely did it to herself and accidentally did it to herself. We're just going to leave that up in the air and leave out the part of how it's Phil Spector's gun. Again, going back to the history of how said gun would end up on a female every time. Again, that's my biggest thing. And
because if they had started with that theory before the case began and rested this case on a very complicated proximate cause theory, that they might not be able to make out a theory of murder. But what is absolutely true is that a defendant is entitled to know the act which he is alleged to have committed before trial, certainly before closing argument. And if the people were to get up in closing and say, well, the defense has made a very big deal of the fact that he wasn't standing in front of her and couldn't have had his gun on the hand on the gun, she could have had her hand on the gun. Well, we can even convict them if we embrace their theory, because if he did as much as point a gun as he did allegedly in the prior incidents, and she somehow wrests it away and shoots herself, he's still guilty of murder. That would raise the most profound constitutional objection. Under Cole versus Arkansas, there would have been no due process notice of the theory. It wouldn't have been injected into the case. It would have been articulated for the prosecution for the first time.
Judge Dahard's response to this.
To a point where they've articulated before that in closing argument. And furthermore, it would necessitate then, if they had that theory, you'd be into a complicated theory where you'd have to give proximate cause instructions, because there are two causes, and was the brandishing or the pointing the proximate cause of what happened with Miss Clarkson shooting herself. The court quite correctly says this is an approximate cause case because we know the cause. This isn't multiple causes or one event causing another. So the only objection that the people could have to this is that they want, for the first time in closing, to argue that even if Mr. Spector's hand was not on that gun when it was in Miss Clarkson's mouth, and of course that is the immediate cause of death, he can be found liable on some protracted theory of liability, of proximate cause liability, that has never been suggested that the court, at this point, of course, the court can't change an instruction to add proximate cause because it has to give those kinds of instructions or settle them before the arguments begin. So we would submit that this is an instruction that stretches the prosecution's theory of liability to encompass everything that they could possibly want, unless they want to argue an impermissible theory that Mr. Spector could be convicted of murder even if Ms. Clarkson pulled the trigger.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon and Mr. Jackson.
Your Honor, may I say something?
Yes.
What counsel has just argued was, I don't have a big objection to this
Instruction.
pinpoint instruction, thank you, with the exception of one clause that I think is
Tell me the-
unnecessary.
Yes,
And that
tell-
is,
tell me
beginning,
the
if the
clause.
court were to take its pen and strike through, beginning with the word resulting and end at hand, I think that is an accurate statement of the law. It would read, it's the prosecution's contention that the act committed by the defendant that caused the death of Ms. Clarkson was his pointing actually it's not a pistol, it's a gun, at her, or at her head and face, or head or face, something like that. There's no requirement that we prove that he put the gun in her mouth. That's the part that's not an accurate statement of the law, and I would submit to...
I think that's been taken out. That was the objection that I basically, I kept denying them their pinpoint instruction because I agreed with you that wasn't the law, that he didn't have to place it in her mouth, and I'm asking where that appears in this instruction.
Unless I have a different version, it reads, if the court reads the second full sentence, it reads, it is the prosecution's contention that the act committed by the defendant that caused the death of Ms. Clarkson was his pointing a pistol at her, resulting in that pistol entering Ms. Clarkson's mouth while in Mr. Spector's hand.
Right.
From resulting to hand is unnecessary. If you take it out and just read it and it ends at the word, the act that was committed was his pointing we could put loaded gun or however you want to put it, at her head or face. That's what we have to prove, that he pointed the gun at her head or face. That it was an intraoral shot is an aside. It could have been an eye socket shot. It could have been a forehead shot. It could have been
I know that, but that's not the facts of the case. I agree with you in the abstract. What you're saying is absolutely correct. But
Okay.
we have to tie the purpose of a pinpoint instruction when it's requested by the defense or even by the prosecution, if you would, is that it reflects the general law to the specific facts of the case. And here we know that the gun did it in her mouth.
Correct.
And you don't have to prove that he put it there. If she was resisting in some way and the gun ended up in her mouth,
That's
then
right.
he's liable. And I think that's what this instruction says.
Okay, then my only, if the court is, and like I said, I don't have strong objections to it. One, I guess it's a grammatical thing. I would suggest that, first of all, we change the word pistol to gun. It was a,
That's fine, Your Honor.
okay.
Okay.
Just to be accurate, we've all called it a gun throughout the trial. I would suggest after her, is there a comma there?
There is a comma after her.
Okay, which resulted in that gun entering Ms. Clarkson's mouth while in Mr. Spector's hand.
Any objection to that? It doesn't change the
No objection.
It doesn't change anything just grammatically,
Okay,
it's more.
just let me change it. Okay. All right, and as long as, the people's argument basically,
We expect
goes
it'll be tailored to this theory. I mean, that's what
Fine.
my argument and opening argument was. I expect this to...
let me hand it,
Rebuttal.
if you've made the changes, that's fine. We need an original and, did we say 28 copies?
We've got all the,
Yes.
we've got all the instructions done at this point.
Okay,
There's-
just do
I'll
that
just
one.
add this to it and I'll give it to you at lunch.
That's fine. Okay, you ready to proceed? We're ready. Here we go. All right, thank you.
Judge, there were a couple of things that I wanted to bring up.
Eh, we're not actually ready.
Presence of
We
the
got
jury.
13 more minutes of whatever the hell they're debating
This
about.
isn't going to take real long, but these are things that I don't think Mr. Dixon can clarify in rebuttal. I'm not
Okay.
going to sit here and argue about every misstatement of fact. That's what rebuttal's for. We'll
I
take
think
care
you
of most of
are.
those.
Everyone
However,
is.
There were, I think, a couple of inappropriate statements or pieces of evidence suggested by Ms. Kinney Bodden during her closing, and some of these or all of these may need some court intervention to clear them up. First, and there's 4 points. First, the defense was very quick to make sure that I wasn't, in my closing argument, making any personal attacks on the defense. And I couched, and I think I defended myself accurately. I couched all of my comments insofar as my comments about the defense in the defense presentation of the evidence. I didn't comment on any defense attorney. I certainly didn't say that defense attorneys were
Call her
doing
my
anything
titty
wrong
tassels.
or inappropriate, and I certainly didn't
Red.
engage in
They'd
any
be red if I
wholesale
had
attack on the defense. I
I'd go full
taken a
Elvira.
little bit aback by the Daniel Stark clip that was played yesterday. That clip was played for one reason and one reason only, and that was a personal attack on me. Had absolutely no evidentiary value whatsoever. As a matter of
Holy
fact,
crap.
the court admonished the jurors
are we on the
that
seventh?
comments
What
made
is
by the
going
lawyers,
on?
they are not evidence.
I can't even-
The only way that they become evidence is if it, in fact, it gives context to an answer. Well, the clip that was played by Ms. Kinney-Bodden was, "May I explain my answer?" coming from Mr. Stark, which would have been evidence. That's fine. Then she played me saying, "No, I didn't ask you a question. If it needs to be cleared up, you can clear it up through Mr. Rosen." And then Mr. Rosen stands up and says, "Clear it up." And then the clip stopped.
Right.
The clip was brought into evidence to attack me, not for the evidence from Daniel Stark. And Ms. Kinney-Bodden followed up by saying, "You can see from this that the government treats witnesses, quote, with malice and contempt." The
now
government
we're
is
working on the
desperate
sixth
to
one.
tear down
Jesus.
the character of witnesses. And if you trade the word government, that's a real nice broad term that has become
Well, there's
Wow.
only two representatives of the government.
there you go. It's me or it's him.
Well,
One
I'm
of
the
two.
third branch, but I'm not there, so that's okay.
That's right, and it's become somewhat common for the defense to call Mr. Dixon and myself the government. But if you were to trade that for instance, if I were to trade that for the defense attorney and say the defense attorney treats witnesses with malice and contempt, you would have stopped me. I think that's an unfair attack on me for vigorously cross-examining some or all of the witnesses that I cross-examined. I just don't think it's fair. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I didn't attack defense counsel, and I'd appreciate it if defense counsel showed us the same respect and did not call me personally malicious or contemptuous. I thought that was inappropriate. Number two, the bureau drawer, and giving Ms. Kinney-Bodden credit and all due deference, she wasn't at the jury view. She said yesterday that the drawer may have been stuck open. Therefore, Lana Clarkson may have seen the gun as the drawer was stuck open. We don't know. Well, actually, we do know, and she wasn't at the jury view. We were. The court actually asked us, and Mr. Rosen, I think, physically did it, pulled that drawer open and closed it. And so the drawer was still open when the jurors saw it, but it was open because the court asked us to open it so it would approximate how the foyer was. It wasn't stuck open. I think that needs to be cleared up factually. And it was a matter of speculation, not significantly different from, and it was something that's not in the record, not significantly different from the tequila bottle that the court, I think, properly talked to me about and cleared up. The third point is the PEX exhibits. You know the backspatter exhibits that
Yes.
we've seen so much of? I objected vigorously to those being admitted into evidence. And my objection was they do not approximate the backspatter in this case. Mr. Plord, I believe it was Mr. Plord, argued, absolutely, they don't. And PEX said they don't. They're not intended for that. They're just intended as general exhibits of what backspatter can look like. Then Ms. Kinney-Bodden stands up yesterday and says, this is what you would expect to see on Mr. Spector's jacket. This is what the backspatter should have looked like. And that is exactly why I did not want those exhibits placed into evidence. That's not what the testimony was, and it's misleading to the jury. And the final point is a little bit more difficult and a knottier legal issue. K-N-O-T-T-Y. Ms. Kinney-Bodden said that Ms. Clarkson could have been told by Mr. Spector about the gun in the house. That's something that Mr. Spector could have told her, that on the way home he could have said, hey, look, there's a gun in the house, and therefore she looked around and found the gun, or he placed the gun in the drawer and she saw that, et cetera, et cetera. There is one person in this courtroom that would know that. And he's sitting right there. And we can't, this is a point that Mr. Dixon, I don't believe, can address because we're getting too close to Griffin. Okay. The court has to take care. That was an absolutely pure, speculative comment by Ms. Linda Kinney-Bodden. It was inappropriate. There's no evidence of it. I would like the court to admonish the jurors there's absolutely no evidence that Mr. Spector ever told Lana Clarkson anything about a weapon or where the gun was or where it was secreted. If Mr. Dixon does it, we're going to get awfully close to Griffin.
I understand your concern, and I'll address that.
Okay.
Well, as long as we're doing this, there was one other statement, and I was real careful with the defense objections, and believe me, I've reviewed almost every case. and I did this before, both sides argue, just to be ready, just to not expecting anything, and quite frankly, there hasn't been that many. Well within the bounds of normal argument where occasionally something is crossed. I mean, I haven't heard, with very few exceptions, anything that might be a problem. But the ones that I was very careful to admonish the jury about as the defense, there was one that I think crossed
Kathy
over
just
from
came through
acceptable
Venmo with
comment to the
420.
same thing that I upheld for the defense.
Kathy,
and that
you
was
got
the
on a
comment that
the sixth will we're building
prosecution
right now.
corrupted the evidence. And
Thank you
corrupted
so
is a
much,
very
Kathy.
strong and inappropriate word. If you want to say, misapplied or misinterpreted, that's fine. Corrupted is a very specific, and to me, if I'm going to do it for the defense, I'm going to do it for the prosecution, and I think that was a mistake. So I'm going to admonish them about that, unless you want to self-correct that, Ms. Kimball. It's up to you. Okay, before
I would like to be heard on the wrong day.
I'm going to, but before you do that, I'm going to make some comments, because some of these can be taken care of by Mr. Dixon. The backspatter, as you say, there's evidence, and he said that's not. Just point out what the evidence is as to the Jackson Pollock exhibits, if you will, the colored dots. Not that I want to be an art critic, if you wish, without attribution. Thank you. But that you can cite the record to clear that up.
That's fine, Judge.
The other matters, I think we need to be discussed. So, Ms. Kinney-Bodden, you can go ahead and tell me what you think.
You want me to stand? On the inference to be drawn.
Hey, Nosy, thank you so much for coming through here. I appreciate the hell out of it. Have a good night. Yeah, it'll be here, and we're going to keep on rocking Thursday, so don't forget.
Rami Davis specifically testified that Mr. Spector told her he tells women when he first meets them that he carries a gun. I'm working off an inference on that, and that's a legitimate inference because this is the first time he met Ms. Clarkson. And that was a testimony from Rami Davis on direct testimony from the state's case. And in fact, he told Rami Davis that he carries a gun in case they're upset, so that people don't get upset. So I think that's an absolute legitimate inference. That's not saying that he's testifying. It's an inference from what Rami Davis said.
That's not the problem. What the prosecution is saying, it's a perfectly legitimate argument for you to make and to draw the inference. I don't have a problem with that. The problem the prosecution is stating is Griffin error. And for those that don't know what Griffin error is, that the prosecution is not allowed to either directly comment or infer anything that would interfere with the defendant's right not to testify and comment upon it. And what they're concerned about is if they comment that that's not supported by the evidence, since the only person who could testify would be Mr. Spector, and since he did not, that they're going to end up commenting or committing Griffin error. Now,
I use the word inference specifically.
I know. What they're raising is a concern with me, and there's certainly the prosecution is allowed to make the following argument. It doesn't apply specifically to the facts of this case. There is no evidence to support that. And quite frankly, I don't think there would be Griffin error, that there's no evidence in the record to support that. If you stick to that, that's not Griffin error. Mr. Reardon, you want to be here? Because I don't think it is, because otherwise I'm going to have to get involved.
No, Your Honor. Let me be clear on one thing. There is the prosecution is going to get up in this case and say that Mr. Spector took a gun on that day, pointed it at Ms. Clarkson, and so forth and so on. And it's going to do that not based on any evidence that anyone observed that on that night. It's going to do that on the grounds that you can infer that he acted that way as he had on prior occasions.
I agree that that's an inference that the defense is allowed to draw and to comment upon. The question is, how does the prosecution go about it?
Jessica, thank you so much.
I think it is perfectly appropriate to say that the defense has argued that Mr. Spector may have said this to Ms. Clarkson. It did that based on a claim that Ms. Davis said that he had made comments to her. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that is not a legitimate inference to draw from Ms. Davis's testimony. What they can't do is say, if that had been true, Mr. Spector would have gotten on the stand and testified.
I think we know that. I think it's fair to say.
All right, we got 2 minutes left of this video, and then we're going to spin 2 more wheels, maybe 3 more wheels. Yeah, let's do 3 more wheels, then that'll catch us up to 1 more wheel at the very end. Holy crap.
That's not a legitimate, I agree, there's not a legitimate inference, and there is no evidence to support that. That's a general, and that's what you're allowed to say. And that's all I could say. There's no evidence to support that. I mean, frankly, it's not Griffin error.
I understand. My I'm sensitive to it.
I know.
That's why I thought,
And
if
I'm
that's
glad-
what the court's going to say, I would suggest the court tell the jurors that
But I don't need to. What I'm saying is,
you have
that's
no problem with us saying.
absolutely. Mr. Reardon has just stipulated. And
Saying that something is unsupported by the evidence is not Griffin error, as long as there isn't some either direct or implicit suggestion that the
We'll have a will
absence of
party.
the fact that the defendant didn't testify.
Like
no evidence in
tonight's
the record.
been. This is the craziest will night ever.
What about the
bar none.
malice and contempt to witnesses? I agree that's the same
I don't know what
language
to
that I
say.
prevented the prosecution from using towards the
Well, my
defense.
point was that they were telling a half story and they had to
Well,
clean it up.
there's-
If you want
there's-
me to clean it up, I'll clean it
The
up.
terms malice and contempt are the
Yeah.
problem. It's not, you can argue, you can argue that, they're wrong. I mean, they're wrong or they,
If you want me to clean it up a little bit and say there's a half story, I'll be happy to do
I
that.
do. And then we have to deal with the drawer. You can either do it yourself or I'll do it.
But the problem with the drawer is that I argued again in inference, Your Honor, because on the 4th in the afternoon, the drawer was still open. So I said,
You can argue that.
No, we don't know whether the drawer was stuck or not. And then 3 years later, we don't know whether that bureau drawer is the same.
That's perfectly reasonable, but to the extent that I think you need to point out that as to the jury view, I was the one that said leave the drawer open because the jurors may want
I
to look
wasn't
into it.
talking about the jury view, though, Your Honor.
But I think there's that inference that it's possible. You can argue all the rest. That's perfectly
Okay,
acceptable.
Because I didn't even know the drawer.
I know.
To tell you the truth, until you just told me, I didn't even know the drawer was pulled out open.
Well, just roll that into your argument.
Okay, I'll roll it in at some
Thank
point,
you.
yeah.
Anything else?
No, Judge.
Okay, let's bring out the jurors and the alternates.
All right, let's get some wheels rolling here. As we go into the next hour of Linda, we're going to watch it. Another hour 9 before we go into the book club. So again, we're going late tonight, okay? But right now, since everybody... let's see what we're about to do. So let me scroll back up. I've got these numbered here. So I'm about to do Will 2 right now. Okay, then I'll go ahead and start playing and do Will 3, and then I will immediately pause, spin Will 3, and the same all the way to the 5th Will, which is where we have full Willage at, and then we'll do save that one for the very end of the show. But right now, Will number 2. Good luck, everybody. Well, that's Pammy. Pammy gets Will number 2. Kind of hit that one a little weird, but Pammy gets Will 2. Let me put you down here, Pammy. And hell yeah, Pammy always coming through, being generous as hell, being amazing. Pretty much every freaking episode, like she's incredible. Coming through the Buzz Nation like a whirlwind. She don't fuck around. And Pammy might actually want me to strip. She may actually want me to put the tassels on and try to do the spin move. You guys ever seen the strippers that can do that? And they can go like the... That's what I'm going to be doing here soon. So, Pammy! Let me get another one going.
All right. The record will reflect the jurors and the alternates are now present, and thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We're trying to resolve all the legal issues and jury issues so that when argument is finished, whether it's within enough time today for me to instruct you at the end of the day or first thing
Will
Monday
3.
morning, as the case may
Holy
be,
crap.
that we're ready to go without any further delay. But I do thank you
I'm
for
gonna
your
work
patience.
tonight, baby.
And Ms. Kenny
I love
Bobby,
it.
you may resume your argument.
Oh, Brooklyn!
Good morning, ladies
Get
and
in
gentlemen.
here.
I'd just like to go back
getting close to
and
the end of this
just
thing, Brooklyn.
clarify a couple things for yesterday in case you were left with the wrong impression, which we definitely don't want you to be. When we're talking as a representatives of Mr. Spector to you and talking about evidence being corrupted, we're not saying somebody falsified or phonied or anything like that. Certainly not the two prosecutors here. We're talking about an institutional view of things that doesn't give you the whole story or misuses or in some way misinterprets the evidence to support them. So I just want you to understand that,
Hello,
so that you
darling.
don't think that there's any personal attack
Nice to meet
on
you.
these two fine gentlemen who are
It's
sitting
been
there.
a
The other
long
thing is that, we're talking about,
time.
and that also applied when we're discussing Mr. Stark. It was the fact that the whole story had to come out on cross-examination, and that's what we're talking about, that we want you to look at the whole story, not look at one
Okay,
side
Pammy, I
as
see that.
parties may have presented
I got you.
to
True Crime Butterfly, getting
And
that
the
one.
third
Thanks to
thing I wanted
Pammy.
to clarify for you is, remember we discussed that drawer in the credenza about whether it could be stuck open on February 3rd because it was still open on February 4th and all the pictures at the end of the day when Mr. Renteria was there. Now, I know you at the jury view apparently had the drawer open. What I was discussing with you had nothing to do with what you did at the jury view, so that we understand understand that we're talking way back in February 4th, 2003. So with just those little comments, I'd like to bring you back to where we ended off yesterday. And we ended off with Mr. DeSouza and some of the mistakes that he would make in the English language, which may be important for you to determine whether there is accuracy in the 1, 2, 3, or 5 words that he claims that he had heard. And the last one that we wanted to bring out to you with regard to, and it was in one of his transcript interviews, if we could, Mr. DeSouza is asked by Detective Tomlin how tall, it turns out it was Lana Clarkson was, and about how old is she, and Mr. DeSouza says, she's not new, rather than she's not young or she's not old or whatever. So again, one word makes a very important difference in this case. And you can see that there are claims, or there are places where one word has been misused. Now, I'd like to also go back briefly to talk about the 911 call just a little bit more. We had up yesterday, if you recall, the transcript prepared by the government, which had put quotations around the words, I think he, but in addition to whether or not it could be that Mr. DeSouza said, I think he said the following, it also could be another interpretation, and we asked you to look at this. The words I think he, could refer to Mr. DeSouza's own opinion as to what he happened. Remember, this is in the transcript here, the first call that's made or second call that's made. Another reasonable end to that sentence is, I think he killed somebody. Why? Well, Mr. DeSouza, he hears a shot, he sees a body, and he hears Philip say something. And he naturally makes a simple association. And then that becomes his memory. An eyewitness and earwitness memory, as you heard from some of the witnesses say, that's why we have science, because they're fallible.
All right, let's do Will 3. Let's go ahead and knock it out, and then we'll do another one. Good luck, everyone. Pammy! Oh my God, the wheel is not rigged. Pammy! Okay, so Pammy just gave away her last one to True Crime Butterfly, and Pammy wins the next one. Holy shit, Pammy. Wow, congratulations on that one.
These are common mistakes exacerbated in stressful situations. So I'd like to summarize for you some of the factors that could have affected Mr. DeSouza's ability to hear Mr. Spector's 5 words perfectly that night.
Make another one.
He was fatigued. We talked about that. He'd woken up from his sleep. We showed you the transcript on that. There was opera playing in the background, but opera is, as you know, arias and all.
You better get a lottery ticket tonight, Pammy.
Which you heard. His shock at seeing a woman with blood around her. So these are factors, along with the fact, if you recall,
going to the casino,
he also
baby.
said he saw Philip Spector be white, and he told you he saw Philip Spector's in shock. Philip Spector's voice quality, that he'd had trouble understanding in the past. He said that Philip Spector had alcohol in him and couldn't understand him with alcohol, and also even Mr. Spector's exhaustion. So these are all different factors that also wind up in when you're discussing whether someone's just merely mistaken about whether he accurately heard the 5 words he claimed that he did heard. And also, now, when we remember that we have all that at that point, once the government's institutional mindset was that he had made those 5 words, which they obviously adopted, and you saw that they adopted right in those tapes. Mr. DeSouza, when he is in the police custody, we had a long talk here about his immigration status. Mr. DeSouza knew what his status was, even if the police may not have known it at that particular moment. And we're not saying that he's a bad person because of this. In fact, for hard-working immigrants, there's a big movement, as we all know, that these laws should be changed, and probably they should. But irrespective of your political viewpoints on those laws, the government since 2000...
I'm just going to say it right now. If Bassett... So this one's going to be... Bassett Page is on this one a lot. So Bassett Page has a lot of chances on this one. She was going nuts during that round. So after this one, we have another fifth will. So this is will number 4. Good luck, everyone. Bassett Page picked it up. Bassett Page getting that win. Congratulations. Put in that extra work on that will, and it paid off.
3 has controlled his fate because they have known that he was an illegal immigrant. And his uncertainty, the South's uncertainty on the very first day, has become a certainty when he came here in this court. And you have to ask yourselves why.
One more will.
Is it because the
Holy
government
crap. We'll do that
was
after
in
this.
control of what happened to him, was sending letters to the immigration department saying he should stay, and now he's working and he doesn't seem to have any danger to be here? And interestingly enough, when you ask Mr. DeSouza whether he's sure about those 5 words that Mr. Spector says, if you go to a different area about his immigration status, he says you have to talk to his lawyer.
Okay, I got you. So your
Okay,
last one, you want
now,
Jessica.
the
Gotcha.
question, do you feel
Y'all are the
that
kindest.
you owe something to the prosecution for some help they've given you? Answer, no. Question, they have given you some help, though, haven't they? Answer, could you repeat that? Sorry. Question, they have given you some help, haven't they? Answer, I'm not say yes, because you have to talk to my lawyer about that, okay? He knows everything. I don't know like that. So he's certain about Philip Spector, but on a very important issue to him, you have to talk to his lawyer about his immigration status. So these are all factors you have to take in. Doesn't mean he's a bad person, but let's remember who was sending letters to try to help him to stay in this country when other people who are also very hardworking don't have that advantage. Now, I've talked to you a little bit about the reasons why, based on the evidence before you, you cannot have proven, and certainly cannot find proven beyond a reasonable doubt, that Adriano DeSouza is correct in his testimony about what Philip Spector said to him in the early morning hours of February 3rd, 2003. But my important point about this comes last, because it consists not only of my argument to you as to the facts,
Gabby's killing
but
this
rather
one.
of what Judge Fidler, and you'll hear it from him, and if I say anything that disagrees with him, trust me, you'll know it, okay? And you'll hear it at that point, will tell you about the law. And these are unlike lawyers' arguments. Judge Fidler will tell you that you must consider with caution any evidence regarding a defendant's oral statements. The only evidence in this case that must be viewed with particular
Gabby's
caution
almost on this
is
entire
the
will.
testimony of Mr. DeSouza.
Gabby loses this one,
as
that'd be
to what he
crazy. The
thinks
5th will
he
is
heard Philip
ready.
say.
My
So the
God.
mountain that the prosecution must surmount to prove any fact beyond a reasonable doubt, if anything, is higher as to Mr. DeSouza than any other witness.
You guys have
because
been incredible
his
tonight.
testimony
Always
bears
incredible.
a unique burden. You must view any testimony concerning an oral statement of a defendant with caution. Now, in addition to that, what Mr. DeSouza claims he is so certain about is opposite to what he said and how he said Philip looked and reacted. He said that when he saw Philip coming out, Philip was white. He looked shocked. Clearly, the blood obviously had drained from his face if he was white. And when he asked Philip...
You came back at the exact time of, the right time of starting the next hour of Linda, which we've got another hour! Oh my God. Like, I planned on going to about... Like, there's the thing. I've got another membership show after this, the book club, which isn't going to be long, but... start at 7, so we're going to be about 3 hours in on after this, maybe even a little more, so I'm going to have to save that next one for Thursday.
When he asked Philip, "What happened, sir?" Philip answered in a nonverbal way the exact opposite of someone who was admitting to a crime. He said that Philip gave a shrug, his hands up, and the normal, "I don't know" position. I don't know. That is a statement of innocence. That is not a statement admitting guilt. The government has spoken at length about Philip's actions and behavior after the shooting in what they call consciousness of guilt. Now, if Philip was indeed feeling guilty, why would he have walked outside knowing somebody is there minutes after the shooting at all? Why would he go where he knows someone's there? And why would he supposedly confess? Rather, we know that he got a diaper,
Let's get up and stretch real quick.
which Mr. Jackson told you in his opening statement was in the bathroom, and which we don't dispute. Several of these curative diapers, one of them was downstairs in a bathroom, and I want you to visualize. And we don't dispute that. What we dispute is what he did with the diaper. The inference, you can't draw an inference because it's somebody's face was wiped that somebody was trying to hide evidence, especially if Lana Clarkson had been breathing, and even if she hadn't, to try to figure out what happened, where is something happened? Is she shot? Is she shot here? In fact, if he hadn't tried to help her, I would imagine that the government would be calling him all sorts of names. He used the diaper, the inferences, to wipe her face, not wipe down her face. The addition of that little word creates a sinister connotation. And you can look at the evidence in both ways, and you'll hear later on.
I'm going to use the bathroom and get another water. I'll be right back,
guys. If there
guys.
is a fact that points to innocence and a fact that points to guilt on a circumstantial evidence case, you must go with the way that points to innocence, and we'll discuss that further a little down the line. Going back, we know that Philip drops the bathroom in the diaper, and the diaper is not washed off because there is clotted blood and blood on top of it, and you'll have the pictures in there and you'll see it. And what's the significance of this? That means that the diaper wasn't washed off. It wasn't put in the toilet bowl and washed off, or else the blood clots, the coagulates simply would not lay on top of the diaper. Rather, it supports the fact that Philip went to the bathroom, put the diaper under the faucet, wet it, wiped her blood. You see a diluted blood on the diaper, and Dr. Harold testified to that. And also, when he was wiping her, he got some of the clotted coagulant on the blood. And therefore, he was not hiding it. And you heard that it doesn't take 15 minutes here just for blood to clot in a wound, a head wound, that some of the blood comes out as clotted coagulant, and in fact, this diaper had tissue in the clots. So you don't need to wait 15 minutes. That's what happens in an intraoral gunshot wound, because you're getting tissue from certain areas of the face and the brain. Now, after trying that, what's the inference? That Philip tries to hide? No, the inference is that he goes outside after he tries to help her, and the reason you can draw that inference is because there is some blood on the door latch and the doorknob, which were separated. Open the door latch with one hand, the doorknob with another. And what does that mean? That means you don't have a gun in your hand. And that means you didn't try to wipe anything away, because you've transferred what you've just gotten from trying to help somebody onto the door latch as you've gone outside where you know somebody is standing, not to try to hide anything. There was no wiping down of any door latch or doorknob, or even perhaps he still had the diaper in his hand, balled up, able to open that door notch and door lock. And they're separated from each other. Remember that. And he's right-handed. And he goes out, and he goes out, and he goes out right to Adriana D'Souza, who he knows is outside. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that the inference here is that this is Phillips Spector's call for help to the person he knows is outside. Philip speaks to D'Souza, whatever the words are. He speaks to D'Souza. And remember, D'Souza says that he starts to run down the driveway with a phone, but he doesn't know how to use it, a cell phone. He doesn't say Philip turned around and ran away. What's the inference? Philip was watching him run down the driveway with a cell phone. And then D'Souza tells you he comes back to the car because he forgot he had the car. And he gets in the car. He doesn't tell you Philip walked away. What's the inference? Philip sees D'Souza driving away. The inference is to get help. To get help. Not to have some type of sinister act of covering up a crime scene. And that is the evidence. That's two ways to look at the evidence. But that inference was never looked at by the government because they only had an institutional
get some water,
mindset
use the
that
bathroom,
somehow
get a little stretch going. Tonight has been crazy, dude. Oh, Dude, Gabby, thank you so much. All right, I'm out, Cub Scouts. Love you all. Hope everyone has a great night. Come back through Thursday, Gabby, and we will be going into the last hour of Linda's closing.
He tried to cover up evidence. Now, DeSouza said he saw Philip come out with a gun in his right hand, which would make it impossible, obviously, to open those two door latches if you're using two hands. And if he has it in his right hand, how is he opening, when he's right-handed, the door latch and the doorknob? Is he going to use his left hand? It doesn't make any sense. And for the first time at trial, he says he sees a brown grip of the gun handle. Now, you saw when Mr. Brunon grabbed that small revolver, you couldn't see the brown handle. And he had never said it in all of his interviews, in any of his statements before he got here to trial. And you can't see it. But you can see the grip of the handle if you've looked in and seen a gun at the foot of Lana Clarkson. That you can see. And what Mr. Sousa did is what other witnesses do after history. He transposes the gun into Philip's hands because he sees a gun and he thinks somehow that Philip has shot this woman. So he transposes that gun. Psychologists call it confabulation. It's not lying. It's just filling in the facts where you think they should be in a stressful situation. Or he sees Philip with...
Hell yeah, Justice Serve just shared out this stream. Thank you so much, Linda. Appreciate that. We live inside of a dream and nothing is real. When I say that, I mean that. What is reality?
And he thinks it's the gun.
I'm not sure.
And that's exactly how Philip would be holding that washcloth. Look at the pictures of it in the bathroom. It's all kind of balled around. It's all kind of balled up. It's not large and stretched out. Moreover, Philip Spector clearly was not holding the gun because there are fingerprint ridges that you saw yesterday, and again, you're going to go in there and look at this, on the gun underneath blood, not on top of blood. Not on top of blood, along with the spatter that you yourself would be able to see. All of this is very normal and reasonable in face of the science that says Philip Spector wasn't trying to clean anything up and wasn't going to hunt, wasn't holding the gun. And you can go in your search for the truth and see what you see. By the way, let's talk again at this point, whatever happened to Mr. DeSousa's uncertainty that he expressed about those words. Again, no one learned about it. We discussed yesterday that Coroner Investigator Nelson said you have to challenge and verify, and that it would have been important to her to know about these statements at time of trial. Dr. Pena sat here for 5 days, and he was given police reports, and he told you that the first and foremost reason Dr. Pena told you that he called this a homicide was because Philip Spector had made a statement to Adriana DeSouza. That was his reason. Not something from the autopsy table. Well, if you're going to rely on that as your reason, you should know at the time that he also made a statement that Mr. DeSouza was uncertain whether he heard those words. And Dr. Pena said once he got here at trial, he was not going to change his opinion that this was a homicide. He told you that. But he didn't know about those words at the time that he expressed this was a homicide in the death certificate, and that was still his main reason. He never took into account any uncertainty. Dr. Pena also said it was very important that there was blood in one of the front pockets of Philip Spector. But search your notes. He never told you why that was important. Had there been some type of implication that Philip put a gun in his pocket? What did it mean? It's consistent with innocence that Philip did not wipe off his hands, try to hide evidence, wash his clothes, not consistent with guilt. It got there because Philip Spector didn't wash his hands. That is a circumstantial fact that points to innocence. Was it also transferred to the banister when he went to the bathroom to put the diaper back? That blood wasn't wiped off the banister. Nothing was wiped off or wiped down. Nothing was destroyed. Everything was in plain view. It was kept there, ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you,
New water.
because he knew the police were coming.
You know what I
'Cause when
did?
he-
I did buy some apple juice. I did drink some apple juice last night. That was really good. Trying to figure out some more stuff to drink. Like, I'm not a big, and it's all natural, like whatever. It's the not from concentrate or is from, whichever one is the straight up apple juice and not like crap. And it was delicious also.
Went outside, he saw Mr. DeSouza use the phone and leave. Let's discuss one further reason why Philip Spector would not have come out holding the gun. DeSouza says he hears a Poe, and he walks around, goes to the air conditioner, the trees, the fountain. A couple minutes later, goes to his car, and then sits in his car for a minute. What is that? 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes after hearing the Poe? The government, in their closing yesterday, tried to say that the time frame was about 20 seconds to a minute at most. You recall that Mr. Jackson indicated it takes about 20 seconds to walk around the fountain, a minute in the car. I suggest to you the reason that they're trying to now limit that time frame is because they know that Philip went to the bathroom, got the diaper, and tried to help Lana Clarkson to see if I could help her. By shortening that time frame, that's impossible. But here's what Mr. DeSouza said in one of his interviews. So from the time you heard the sound until the door opened, that was what? 4 minutes? 5 minutes? Something like that? Answer: about 2 or 3 minutes. The reporter, I couldn't hear. Question by Mr. Brunon again. Is it 2, 3 minutes looking around and then a minute or 2 in the car? Is that our time frame? Answer: yes. That's about 5 minutes, not 20 seconds to 1 minute. That's about 5 minutes. And no one who has just shot somebody holds a gun in their hand for 5 minutes, walking around, and then comes outside.
If they're drunk as fuck, they probably would. Like, probably confused as hell. Like, I can see it in so many different ways is the thing. Like, they depict it a lot of different ways and they go over a lot of different scenarios. But I could totally see, again, you go back to how intoxicated they are. I've repeated this probably 1,000 times on here, but I just go back to the way they're saying it because it's whatever. Being drunk as piss, you pull out the gun, you're doing usual Phil Spector shit when the lady's trying to leave, putting the gun in her mouth, in her face, whatever. Even if you didn't mean to do it, right? Like, that gun was in her face and mouth recklessly because of Phil Spector. I think that does signify what they're going for here, second-degree murder. Even if they're going back to their theory of, which is a mix-up in my brain and how they're kind of playing it off, whether she did it herself purposefully, on purpose, or she accidentally somehow let it go off. Maybe trying to get it. I could totally a new scenario in my head as he's putting it in her mouth, drunk as piss. She's trying to push the gun back and slips and hits it. Again, that would be on Phil Spector.
And allegedly confesses. It doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is that he tried to help Miss Clarkson first, then came outside. Not that he came outside holding a gun. The scenario that it's only 20 seconds to a minute ignores the state's own witness, who said this under oath, and you don't have to take my word for it. It's in black and white. The blood on the diaper had part coagulated, and an intraoral gunshot wound, it comes out. It all fits together. That's what fits together, not half stories. The government has a lot invested in Mr. DeSouza in the sense that you have to believe his statement because the science does not support their case. They try to buttress DeSouza's testimony by Philip Spector and hinted to you.
And where I've kind of I think Linda's doing a really good job here, and I think she, I was even saying it on some of the past episodes now, that I think she's seeded enough doubt to where if I was one of these jurors, I would have a really tough time at the end of the day convicting Spector just on what I think, right? And that's not how you're supposed to do it. And what I do think is what I just said. Well, I don't know. I can go through the different scenarios. But what I do think is that she died from the reckless actions of Phil Spector at the end of the day. So I mean, this is tough. It would be really tough to be on this jury.
Cleaned up for 40 minutes, and therefore this consciousness of guilt tells you the Sousa must have been telling the truth. But no police officer came in and told you that something had been cleaned up. Mr. Kyle told you everything was there for them to see. It was all in the open for you to see in the pictures. And what you didn't hear also, that when in the initial consciousness of guilt, when we brought the Alhambra police officer here to talk to you, and again, we brought him here, he said when they came there, they saw Mr. DeSouza standing on that second floor landing, and you've been to the house right at the stairway, and he had his back on the window, but he was just looking down where Miss Clarkson would be. And then he came downstairs. The Alhambra cop told you that. He came right downstairs. Obviously, he came downstairs because he saw them and went right to the front door. Obviously, because he saw them. And to the officers who do not have a language problem, do not misuse words, we had to bring you, the officer, to say, Mr. Spector, Philip said, you have to come and see this. You have to come in and see this. You have to come in and see this. You've got to come in and see this. Officer Alhambra Police Department. Okay? And in any event, they decide that because they already have a murder suspect and he does not keep his hands out of his pockets, he puts them up, look, you got to come in and see this. Got to come in and see this, that they're going to tackle him and seize him. Now, we're not castigating the officers because that's a different issue, an issue for a different day, a different matter. However, we are casting the government's use of this. We are suggesting that the government's use of this allegation that he did not cooperate as a consciousness of guilt, that somehow he resisted arrest, is false. Mr. Spector invited them in as if he was waiting for them, just as someone who thought the Sousa had gone for help would expect, that the cops are coming, leave everything where it is. As soon as they come, and he's not staying down there in the hallway with a deceased woman. He stays up on the landing. He's gone up to his bedroom, if indeed he has, taken the jacket, stays on the landing, keeps everything, and as soon as they come, he comes downstairs and tells them to come on in. That is not the actions. Those are not the actions of somebody who thinks he's guilty. The government's implication that he had a guilty mind and an evil heart, but he was waiting for the police and they invited him in, a guilty person simply does not do that. And what you also heard, if you listen carefully, is that the front door had never been closed after DeSouza left. Because what the officer Hammond didn't tell you is that Philip opened the front door. He just said he came out. He came out. When they got there, they saw a body and he came out. That's the reason why you know it's still open. And why is that important? Because Mr. Jackson told you in an opening statement about the actions that Philip took after the shooting indicated this consciousness of guilt. He told you that Philip Spector spent 40 minutes inside the house covering up, cleaning, making up a story. The question for you is, why would Philip supposedly cover up his crime with a front door wide open? It's like, you know, if I were back home, I would say it would like committing a crime in Giant Stadium, but I guess you have, Dodger Stadium out here, whatever it is. I'm not a sports person, as you can tell. But whatever, you don't do it. You're not leaving the door wide open for people to see that everything that you do. And that's very important. There is no consciousness of guilt. Now let's move on to the other area, the select past relationships. The select past relationships that were brought into this courtroom from 10, 20, 30 years ago. I'm going to discuss with you now those 5 women who supposedly supply a motive for Philip Spector to kill Lana Clarkson, but in reality have nothing to do with this case at all. And like all tall tales, they grow and grow.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat for, first of all, being awesome, just having decorum, being able to discuss and have different opinions without absolutely losing your minds on each other. That's awesome. That's literally what the Buzz Nation is about. is what I really like to see. And me personally, I think it's perfect because I'm a flip flopper with my opinion. That's one thing that I do often, and I do it unapologetically because I think that's the way you kind of should be, especially in the face of new facts. But even just if you can get, I don't know, like the one thing that I say all the time, two things are often true at the same time. Now, does that make one thing better than the other, or one thing more right than the other, or more wrong than the other? Not necessarily, but I can see both sides on a lot of stuff when a lot of people that I see out here, especially on X, just kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent right now, how people can get get tunnel vision, and they can't see either side, whether that be because of they're on a side because of a click, or they're not really trying to see all the facts because they hate somebody, or I try to see it as evenly as possible. And I just want to say everybody in the chat is awesome, because again, even though we have different opinions in here, you're the best. Like, that's fucking awesome.
The government wants you to believe that these alleged incidents prove that Philip Spector had a motive to kill somebody he only met a couple hours before. All of the women here had long-term relationships with Philip Spector. All of them. They knew him for a long time. Some of them even continued their relationships after the supposed allegations that were testified to. One of the things we also know from these women is that there's a period of time with Philip where he spends time being charming, romantic, thoughtful, according to all the women.
Good people.
That doesn't fit the psychological profile of somebody who would just kill somebody the first time he met her. Not the same. Dorothy Melvin comes in here and says she was battered on the head, hit twice, if I recall, and you'll use your recollections, with a gun on July 3rd, 1993. That she was bloodied for all to see. That was simply untrue. And how did you have to find that out? Well, we were the ones that cross-examined an officer from the Pasadena Police Department who contradicted her claims, which were first made in this courtroom. According to him, she had no bumps on her head. She desired no prosecution, and her purse allegedly was in plain view in the living room where she'd claimed Spector had stolen it or hidden it. The officer, despite what Melvin said Philip was not drunk. Moreover, the officer told you, this 20-year veteran, police force, that not only would he have to, but he was obligated to have conducted a further investigation if he had seen any indications of violence. Any indications of violence. Ms. Melvin then says she dated Philip Spector or had a relationship with him thereafter only 2 to 4 times in public places. Remember, supposedly this occurs, and yet according to her friend, Mr. Tonazo, who suddenly appeared in this case near the beginning of this trial, and there's no police reports on anything, and there's no notations of anything before anything, supposedly Philip was invited as Dorothy Melvin's guest to 2 Joan Rivers parties, one in December 1993 and in December 1994. And the last time he saw Philip Spector and Dorothy Melvin, they were driving away together in a car. Now, that is supposedly after he battered and bruised her with a gun on his head. She also emails jokes to him. She was emailing him and had an email relationship with him until January 2003, just a few days before this incident that Philip Spector is charged with happened. Clearly, ladies and gentlemen, whatever happened in 1993, whatever happened, it was not a life-threatening incident. And clearly, it had nothing to do with what happened later in February 2003, 10 years later. Melissa Pelagi Grosvenor. The government then brings to you, Melissa Pelagi Grosvenor, a convicted felon for bank embezzlement to discuss on another alleged incident. Keep in your mind, Ms. Grosvenor was the only person that testified in this courtroom that was convicted of a crime involving dishonesty. Convicted of any crime. Initially, she told you for all of her testimony until almost the very last questions on, I think it was recross, that this incident that she had allegedly occurred in December 1992. Of course, there's no police reports, there's no other statements, there's no nothing to go back and check any of that out. But at the end of her testimony, she tells Mr. Rosen, well, it could have happened in January 1993. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would suggest to you, if you've had a life-threatening incident with a gun on your face, as she testified here, you darn well know when it happened. You darn well know when it happened. And you certainly don't indicate that you come in here for the first time and tell this story. Obviously, it was not even important enough for her to know a date. She was the only person convicted of a crime. She also lied on an application under certification to Continental Airlines about her history. She continued her dishonesty by stealing a plaque. Now, that may not be enough, but the point is that this is the type of evidence the government brings to you, that they want you to judge a person being credible. Well, use the same standard for the government's witnesses as you use the defense witnesses. Use the same standard. Do you rely on a convicted felon? It's a serious matter. It's a very serious matter. Ms. Grosvenor said she dated Philip Spector for years, according to her, platonically. But yet when she finished this incident, she didn't know when it happened. You, I suggest, would know when it happened. I suggest any person.
Motion to
if it
screen.
really
Welcome in
happened.
here.
Nothing was reported to the police. There is no documentation or anything to support her at all. If anything happened between Philip Spector and Melissa Grosvenor, it clearly was an embellishment, and it had nothing to do with any motive to kill Lana Clarkson 10 years later. Stephanie Jennings. In 2003, she sold her story to a tabloid about an alleged incident that occurred in April of 1994. She had also been in a long-term dating relationship with Philip Spector. And supposedly, he came at her, and then she unlocks her hotel room, lets him in again instead of bolting it, and lets him in with a gun. There were discrepancies whether the gun is pointed, not pointed, but we do know that the police came. There's no indication that anybody found a gun, and we know that at 6 a.m. in the morning, management of the hotel shipped her home. We know that the police never found the gun. Ladies and gentlemen, there's more to this story that's been led on. And in any event, whatever it is, it has nothing to do with the motive to kill Lana Clarkson 10 years later, a woman he only knew for 3 hours rather than the person he had dated for several years. Jennings also continued her contact with Phil Spector for over a year after this alleged incident. And then she comes here with a compilation of edited sound bites of tapes where he used foul language. And sure, we don't like the language he used.
I mean,
Absolutely. In a heated situation, but language sometimes in a heated situation with somebody you've been dating gets really heated. But what's very interesting, if you
you'll never work in this fucking town again.
listen to those, you heard them yesterday.
I remember the one he was talking about his nipple ring.
And then saved for 8 or
Early
9
on.
years. You hear Philip
I still
say,
don't really know what he's talking about.
I'm calling you back for the 7 messages or 7 calls you made me. Half a story, because what Stephanie Jennings didn't bring to you is what kind of calls she made to Philip Spector. Obviously, they were having problems, so you only had half the story. Half the story. You had edited tapes, half the story. Whatever happened between them, it has nothing to do with any motive to kill Lana Clarkson almost 10 years later, a woman he barely knew. Diane Ogden Holder. She reports an incident that allegedly occurred in 1982 and then 1989. Supposedly, she has a gun to her head, and then she continues on with Philip for 7 years for another incident. Does that make any sense to you? She knew him for years, and she said something very telling on the stand. She said Philip's conduct, he was mean to her, and it reminded her of something her stepfather did and how her stepfather treated her years ago. Let me just leave it at that. In any event, if this incident occurred in 82 or 88 or 89, it had nothing to do with the death of Lana Clarkson 15 years later. And look at the size of all the women that you saw come in here. They were all fairly small and petite. The last one, 4'11", Deborah Robitaille, talked about 2 alleged incidents, one in the 70s, one sometime in the 80s. Now, you know that she sells her story all of a sudden to the tabloids after the Clarkson shooting. There's no police reports. There's nothing. There's nothing. Nothing about whether these incidents took place. And after the first one that she told you about, that she said she didn't feel physically threatened on, she comes back, and she comes back after the first one, and she leaves the job, she goes to England, she comes back, and then she calls her good friend Philip. She calls her good friend Philip for a job. Her good friend. Do you call somebody who's threatened you with your gun, your good friend, and ask them for a job again? How does she handle the threats this time? By the way, when she says there's a second incident, she said she scolds him like a schoolboy, that she didn't think he meant her any harm. But in any event, if somebody had pointed a gun at you one time, would you go back for more? But more telling about Deborah Robitaille is the fact that in this courtroom, she got up and she said that the statements that she made, which were taped, were wrong. The statement she told you that Philip was not drunk, and then there's an implication here that he was drunk. The story's changed. And the tape recorder, she said, was wrong, and the transcription was wrong. So, ladies and gentlemen, the recorder may have only malfunctioned during some incidents. But Robitaille also tells you something, that she goes back to a party, and she's the last woman standing. I think she was the last man standing, and she couldn't leave because she was working for Philip Spector, even though she had nothing to do with setting up the party, and didn't like it. She said it wasn't as good or something as the one she set up. If you think you're going to be threatened with being somebody, do you go back and stay at a party till 6 o'clock in the morning and be the last person with the person that you're afraid of? Is that what you do? Well, we know in the tabloid story, because when she came up here, we know that when she gave the story to the tabloids, she even got the location of where Philip lived wrong in the alleged second incident. She said that he had lived in Alhambra, when in fact at the time he lived in Pasadena. She didn't even know where he lived. So you have to look at these stories. Whatever happened with her, it's been embellished to make Philip seem like a bad person, so that you don't like him. And again, these incidents occurred 20, 30 years ago, and somehow they supply a motive for Philip to kill Lana Clarkson on February 3rd, something that occurs in allegedly 1975 and in the early 80s, the mid-80s. They supply an incident, a motive. Why did you hear so much about these women? Why did the government spend so much time trotting them out and discussing incidents from 10, 20, 30 years ago? If indeed they happened, they did it because they want you to hate Philip Spector. And they want you to make a huge leap from saying he's a bad person, so he must have killed Lana Clarkson, because the science doesn't support the fact. They want you to convict him on this alleged motive to kill, even though these women have nothing to do with the night in question, and even though there's not even police reports or anything to be able to check them on. In your search for the truth, you can't even go check some of this for Deborah Robitaille and Melissa Grosvenor and Diane Ogden-Halder. They're counting on you to be outraged, so that your outrage will fill the gaps in the science that they are unable to fill. They take 5 women out of his 63 years of life, and they say, look at what a bad person he is. They don't bring in, you heard Kathy Sullivan had a friend who went out with Philip a number of times. They don't bring her into you. And also, let's look at something else that the government had in their possession, if we could. Okay, one moment.
That would crack me up, Brooklyn.
And it's gonna, when Jennifer gets it up, it's gonna, something in their possession, they had a list. They had a list, which we're looking for. Okay? The list I showed you at the police station yesterday, which we're still looking for. Where's Michael Bay when you need him, huh? Well, let's discuss it while she's looking for it, and we're going to get a little help. But they had a list at the police station, and that list had a lot of names on it. And some of the names you'll see were on that list were women. Were women. Janice, Nancy, June, Kaylee. Didn't work. Okay. We'll get there. You didn't hear, here we go. Okay. There's Rami, obviously met her, Nancy, okay. There's some men, June, Casey, Kaylee. You didn't hear any of these women, about any of these women. Why select? Why bring you half a story about Philip Spector? Why select certain people? Why select a convicted felon?
I think the question is whether you can make that list non-blurry.
We tried not to put their phone numbers in it. That's why we blurred it.
Okay. All right.
That was the, we were trying to, in deference to the,
Thank you.
okay, people on there. That's why we try to keep the names and blur the rest of it. Here's Kaylee, Casey.
I think that's a
June.
good theory, Bassett.
Okay, it is in evidence over here, and you'll be able to see it from the small photograph a little better. Nancy, Janice. But why bring you only select people? Man, 63 years old. How many dates has he had in his lifetime? How many relationships he's had in his lifetime? He was a top record producer, you heard, for a long period of time. Why bring you select people? Why bring you a convicted felon? Near the end of his argument, Mr. Jackson dramatically showed clips of the testimony of 5 witnesses who testified about these past incidents with Philip, and asked you to find that this evidence proved that Philip shot Ms. Clarkson. But let's look at how the judge will instruct you with regard to that testimony. And if I say anything that conflicts with that, his instructions control. But let's look you how I believe he's going to instruct you. He will tell you that the evidence may be considered for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to assist you in deciding whether on February 3rd, 2003, Philip had a motive. Philip had a motive, meaning a particular emotional state that might lead him to act in line with that emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, at one point in time, events at one point in time can tell you little about what a person is feeling on a particular occasion 10, 20, or 30 years later, and certainly, in this case, do not prove anything about Philip's emotional state beyond a reasonable doubt on February 3rd, 2003. The judge will tell you that these women's testimony cannot be used to find that Philip has a character or a disposition to commit a crime. The state's argument the state's argument cannot suggest to you a plan or pattern. It has to suggest to you a motive, and that on the night on February 3rd, 2003, Philip Spector acted in light of that motive. Nothing else and nothing more. And they have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's discuss a little bit about the map of where we've been so far, because I know you've been listening to me for a long time.
That's an understatement.
I'm going to talk more in a bit about the law the judge will instruct you on, but let's have some context about where we've been. So when we discuss here the law, there is a little bit of the evidence review. The white jacket, the sleeves, devoid of the blood you saw spattered all over Miss Clarkson. The gun, not wiped off of blood spatter. You're going to do your investigation, not take Mr. Jackson's word for things, my word for things. You do your investigation. The struggle, no evidence of any struggle here for somebody that was going to fight for the life with a gun. An intraoral gunshot wound that was dead center, not moving around. If somebody just was trying to push a gun in a mouth, dead center. Blood spatter that doesn't have the distribution on Philip Spector's jacket that proves that he committed this crime, and a lack of spatter on any of the items that would be closest to Philip Spector, that would be closest to him. Teeth going in the location her head was pointed at the time the gun was discharged. Not to the right, but this way, straight on to where she was sitting, propelled by the glasses far, hitting the stairwell and above the stairwell. Luminol that you can't rely on because it wasn't the test that you do for blood spatter. It is not the test you do to determine blood spatter. The body posture with the legs out was not the position she was shot in. No doubt about that. DNA suggesting sexual contact, permissible. People do it. Adults do it. Nothing wrong with it. No motive for Philip Spector to force. And this is not government manipulations in any bad sense of the word in terms of deviation, purposeful, but just a mindset to use only half of the evidence, not all of the evidence in looking at everything. More the government didn't tell you about. They didn't tell you that Philip Spector at the hospital had anything that would suggest that he was in a struggle, anything to suggest he did the shooting. They were looking for trace evidence, gunshot residue, spatter, blood, tissue. That's what the lab and the nurses were looking for. Those are the hallmarks of how you show whether somebody shot somebody. Those are why all the experts speak the language. They were looking at that evidence to prove something. They did not find it, and you did not hear about it. Obviously, the DNA that you had to hear about in cross-examination, and there were certain government concessions. We know that there is a cloud that comes out of a gun. We absolutely know that. We know there was a psychological autopsy that was suggested and was not done after the determination of homicide was made, after the government started getting a hint from Ms. Clarkson's computer. And we know that there was no investigation into whether Ms. Clarkson could have been the other person who shot the gun here. Witnesses. We've discussed witnesses. There aren't any eyewitnesses. There aren't any eyewitnesses. The only witness who was near the scene is Mr. DeSouza, who said he heard a statement made, and you and I, at this point, discussed that at length both yesterday and together. Mr. DeSouza, whether or not he could have been sure, his language problems, his English problems, the fact that he was not sure, and also other things with regard to him. And now the select past relationships of Philip Spector that are just selected, and whether or not they prove a motive, we suggest to you they don't. So in light of all that you and I have discussed in the past 2 days, let's talk a little bit about the law as you are going to get it from
This has been a lot. Gabbies, what is up?
Judge Fidler. And again, I caution you, if anything I say with regard to the law disagrees with what he says control. I'm going to discuss with you how I think you should view the law in light of the facts. When we started this case, the government asked you in voir dire to hold them to their burden of proof. And they told you that if they had not proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt, then that would be it. Let's go over a few of the elements of the law with you and understand how they apply to this case. First, there is a presumption of innocence. We don't presume guilt. Why don't we? Well, we don't bow under our Constitution in this country to pundits, press, public, police, and prosecutors who prejudge guilt. We don't do that. We go to you. You search for the truth. People have been charged. That doesn't mean they're guilty. So why do we have a presumption of innocence? Well, when the Constitution was written, to make sure the rule of law could not be controlled by kings, princes, and those who curried political favor, decisions could not be controlled by the government, but they had to be controlled by the citizens. That's you, the jurors. It's a quaint concept. We kind of think of the Constitution kind of quaint, but you are the Constitution in action. You're it. Why do we require proof beyond a reasonable doubt to justify a conviction because it has serious consequences. Because we know there'll be instances in criminal cases. We know there'll be instances in criminal cases, and there'll be questions about who did what. And as a society, we have two choices. We can convict people, irrespective of their innocence, or we can acquit them because we don't know whether they're guilty or not. We don't know that. And we make a government go to its burden of proof because the consequences for everybody in society are serious.
Keep in mind, we have another hour of Linda Kitty Bodden closing. This is insane.
We thank God we have the Constitution. And you have to demand proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Because when you're protecting the rights of any defendant, not just Phil Spector, any jury is protecting the rights of everyone. So you hold them to their burden. Do not switch it to the defendant. We do not have to prove to you that Philip was innocent. They have to prove to you Philip was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. They cannot say, just because he behaved badly 10, 20, or 30 years ago, that means he did something here and you must convict him. They must give you real proof that he committed, in this case, murder. Not just because there are stories woven together, or concoctions, or maybe confabulation, or even condemnation, but real proof. That's what you're going to be looking for in that jury room. That's why a defendant's presumed innocent. And he's presumed innocent until you vote otherwise, until and unless you vote otherwise, if you find the government has met that burden of proof. And boy, it's a tough job. You now have a tough job. You've been here for months and months. There's great pressure with regard to getting stories out. You know that he's been called a celebrity. We questioned you in voir dire whether you would hold that against him, that you would ignore those of you who had read anything that you had heard about in terms of gossip columns, in terms of people calling victims and turning scenarios. Your job is to not make good copy, good news, or good ratings. Your job is to seek the truth and do what's right based on what's presented in this courtroom. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, you have to respond to the rule of law, not the rule of ratings. That is why you are required to presume him innocent. What is reasonable doubt? Simply a doubt based on reason or common sense. It's a doubt that a reasonable...
This is the closing that never ends. It just goes on and on, my friends. When you thought it was done and then it just kept on going, we still got an hour if you can believe it. Holy shit. This is the closing that never ends.
Person has after carefully weighing all the evidence. It's a doubt that would cause a reasonable person to hesitate in an act or a matter of greater importance in his personal life, in his or her personal life. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt must be so
Dude, I feel for the
convincing that
jurors.
a reasonable person would not even hesitate to act upon the most important decisions in their life, like a medical decision or a career change or a decision made about one's children. It is not a whim. It is not speculation. It is not suspicion. And it is not concoction. It is not confabulation. It should carry the weight of absolute certainty. Circumstantial evidence. You're going to get a charge about circumstantial evidence because you've heard that this is a circumstantial evidence case. Is everything that is even remotely or tangentially related to the government's theory circumstantial evidence? Well, the law will say that you'll have it, and by the way, you're going to have the law in there with you. You're going to be able to see it. The law is going to discuss circumstantial evidence with you and tell you that if the facts support an inference that points to both guilt and points to both innocence, you must, I can't repeat that enough, you must find the facts that support innocence. You must find the facts that support innocence. Before you may rely on circumstantial evidence to conclude that a fact necessary to find the defendant guilty has been proved, you must be convinced that the people have proved each and every fact essential to that conclusion. That's the first much. Each and every fact. You must prove them to hold them to each and every fact. That's what they told you, and that's what the judge is going to tell you. Before you may rely on circumstantial evidence to conclude that a fact necessary to find the defendant guilty has been proved. Before, you must be convinced that the people have proved each and every fact essential to that conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt. Each and every fact, beyond a reasonable doubt. Also, before you may rely on circumstantial evidence to conclude the defendant guilty, you must be convinced the only reasonable conclusion supported by the circumstantial evidence is that the defendant is guilty. You must, can I go back, please? You must be convinced that the only reasonable conclusion supported by the circumstantial evidence is the defendant is guilty. Must. If you can draw, and this is the most important one, if you can draw two or more reasonable conclusions from circumstantial evidence, and one of those reasonable conclusions points to innocence and the other to guilt, you must accept the one that points to innocence. So if that diaper is there and it suggests to you that Philip just wiped her face to help her, and that's a reasonable inference, you must take the reasonable inference that goes to innocence, not the inference that goes to guilt. It is a mandatory, and it's one of those four-letter words that in this case is extremely important. It may not be sexy, but it's important. However, when you're considering circumstantial evidence, you must accept only reasonable conclusions and reject any that are unreasonable.
Tonight's been crazy,
one of those
Gambies.
reasonable conclusions.
Like the first hour, 2 hours of this show, hour and a half, was just madness. Like these folks, the Buzz Nation just came through so hard tonight. The craziest Will night in the history of the show. I think the max before that was maybe a three-nighter, a three-willer in one night. And we're working on Will 6 now.
Points to innocence and the other to guilt. You must accept the one that points to innocence. You must accept the one that points to innocence. Very, very important. And the reason is because it's really easy to convict somebody if you don't like them very much. It's really, really easy. However, as you learned when we were voir diring you, and you heard them, that some people already had believed Philip was guilty because of media attention. But you're not the media. You're not the media. You're the search for the truth. And after I finish, the government's going to get to go again. They carry the burden of proof. They must prove to you Philip is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So they get a rebuttal argument. But as you are listening to the government, ask yourselves the following questions. Have they really proved their case, or have they just attacked what we brought to you? Are they presenting a case with a consistent theory and clarity? Are you certain, I mean really certain, that what they are telling you is actually what happened? Have they proven that fact to you beyond a reasonable doubt? Are they presenting you mere possibilities, speculations, hypotheticals? or wishes? Or are they presenting you real concrete certainty about what happened on February 3rd, 2003? Are they trying to play into your emotions and somehow let emotions cloud your reason? Or do you rely on the facts? More importantly, why have they never provided you an actual cogent explanation for how the shooting occurred? Where exactly was Philip Spector standing? What exactly happened? What exactly happened? Not that he may have been holding the gun and somehow it got into her mouth. What exactly happened? And why, when such overwhelming scientific evidence showed, the evidence they were looking at to prove his guilt, the evidence they were trying to find to prove his guilt, why, when it was so absent, showing his innocence, why didn't they take the issue of the psychological evidence seriously? Why didn't they go forward? Why didn't they look at it with serious professionals rather than waiting to this courtroom for it to be exposed to you so that you had to look at it? Seriously, if you were conducting an objective investigation, why not look at Ms. Clarkson? Someone at the scene thinks he hears someone say he killed someone, and that ends it? Then you think you have your suspect and you do no more, and all you do is try to prove that that's the truth? You don't look at just what maybe seem to you because you want it to be the obvious. You dig further, and you have to dig further. In this case, unfortunately, there was no digging further. We suggest to you, they suggested it themselves in the word celebrity, high profile, this is going to be a case. Everybody involved knew the import and the political implications. Let's be honest here. The police officer knew Mr. Fournier when he was talking to D'Souza what was at stake here. He knew he was dealing with a celebrity. We suggest to you that this blinded them, They decided to engage in the prosecution of a personality rather than examine the evidence the way it should be examined and the way it ought to be examined. They decided to give you stories rather than science. They decided to give you that speculation rather than certainty. And then they talk to you about little Bobby. And you can surmise because there's footprints in the snow that maybe little Bobby, Philip Spector, is guilty of something. Well, circumstantial evidence requires you to consider the fact that Bobby may also had a brother who had galoshes and went moving in the snow. That Bobby was asleep upstairs, and that somebody else, some other little child in the household, did those footprints. You have to look at everything. You can't just limit your vision to tunnel vision. Government failures to gather and protect evidence. I'd like to go to the screen now. As you know, there was a lot of issues with regarding evidence collection in this case. And in a full and fair investigation, you don't make excuses for what you don't do right. How much more evidence was there that proved Philip's innocence that could have been lost? They can't take advantage of these omissions in order to convict Philip. Now, we don't know. Just as they're alleging that something was taken from the scene, they don't know what it is and how it affected him. We don't know what all this.
Woo! We ain't even done. Gamby's coming through to get a little bit on that six wheel. Somebody, so I did the woo and I didn't even read it yet. Summoning my inner Ric Flair. Woo! Thank you so much, Gambies. I appreciate that. Boom! Coming through with a $5 holla. Thank you so much.
The effects would have had.
Woo! We're getting there. About 6 minutes till the wheel spin, and then book club. Tonight's been incredible. You guys are insane.
But we know that there are problems.
Oh,
well,
my blood's
they didn't
hurting.
test Ms. Clarkson's stomach contents for alcohol, which would have then revealed how much out of that tequila bottle had actually been drunk by her as opposed to Philip Spector. That would have given you a pretty good certainty as how much she had, because you knew, based on her blood alcohol, how many drinks she must have had, and you knew that there was stuff in her stomach. And then you can go back and say, well, did Spector drink anything of that tequila that night? Or did he just have a sip out of a glass? They didn't perform the psychological autopsy. They didn't differentiate between the top and bottoms of Clarkson's hands when performing the GSR tests. which many agencies recognize is important. They didn't wear the protective coverings on their shoes at the scene, something they called the crime scene. They thought it was a crime scene, so that the blood spatter wouldn't be taken in. They didn't remove Miss Clarkson's jacket at the scene and didn't protect it from a purge, obliterating any proper analysis of blood spatter on the left side of the jacket here for us to look at. They didn't document major failure, the blood spatter
Double
at the
vision.
scene that
Double
Linda
Brooklyn.
said she saw on her hands and arms. Didn't document, didn't do a drawing of it, and when she asked for the proper pictures
You guys
to
are
be
cracking
taken,
me up.
they didn't come out. They didn't come out. And some of it's so minute, as you know, you've learned, as many investigators, that you need a loop to see it. And they saw it, and it wasn't documented. They didn't preserve the carpet. They didn't properly take the carpet. And they didn't put a thing on it and then pull it up to take it. Once people walked on the scene, it didn't matter what was in the carpet because it was gone or pushed into the carpet for luminol testing. Item 10. Which they said was a small white particle. The dentist said he thought it was a tooth, but it had not yet been tested. What was that small white particle? Part of the nail that they claim or seem to implicate that we took? They failed to preserve this white item on Miss Clarkson's shoe. We don't know what it was. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's nothing. We don't know. But it's not there. They didn't properly collect Philip's urine for a proper test if they're going to do blood alcohol, if they're going to do an alcohol extrapolation. They didn't put it in the right test tube, they didn't refrigerate it, and so that we are lost, you are lost, with the scientific objective evidence that all of you should have at this stage. Improper documentation of the blood spatter on the slip. There was, if you recall, there was a tape lift here taken. And Dr. Pena told you about meetings they had where they felt that that had compromised their blood spatter investigation. Compromised it, because there was blood spatter all over the tape. Proper collection of blood spatter swabs on Lana Clarkson's wrist. They took 3 samples off before they photographed and documented them. Again, affects the blood spatter evaluation, which luckily we still had the one directional spatter. Improper preservation of her hands when the body was moved from the scene. They weren't protected to look at the blood spatter when it gets back to the coroner's office. They failed to test what they thought was the white nail polish, part of the nail, from the tape lift 4.5 years later, and yet want to try to allege or implicate a criminalist or homicide allegedly taking an object from you that could be that. There was an accidental pink stain on the lab jacket and a dropper of the stopper bottle on his jacket, the most important piece of evidence in this case. No one knows how the pink stain got there. It wasn't there when it was picked up. The gun was handled all over at the scene, and what you didn't see in those pictures was some of the pictures that I think you saw them later. Well, they took even the cartridges out. They took the cartridges out. They handled the gun all over the place. The gun had trace evidence on it. That's little tiny evidence. And they handled the gun all over the place. What else was taken off that gun? Accidentally, not intentionally, accidentally. You saw pictures where some of it was missing at the time it got to the lab. Now, these are some of the failures, okay, that they failed to do with regard to this case. And when you're prosecuting somebody for murder, you can't take advantage of those failures. You can't take advantage of those failures and say, well, ladies and gentlemen, because that switches the burden of proof. That switches the burden of proof. They have the burden of proof, not us. And then they try to come here, and Dr. Harold, Criminals Harold, comes here, and we told you they tested all of Mr. Spector's jacket for smokeless and non-smokeless particles. They looked at his shirt for trace evidence. They didn't find anything. Not GSR primer residue, but for particles. And in their notes, they don't have anything. They don't have anything that they prove to you is. Judge?
Yes. I'm sorry. Can you take a break?
Oh, I see a juror. A juror is tapping out. They're like, Mother of God, please, let us go for free. I've got to pee. Oh, my God in heaven.
All right, we'll take a break at this time. Keep in mind the admonition will resume in about 10 minutes or so. Thank you.
All right. So we're going to be going into this. Look at this. Another hour. Thursday is going to start us out, folks. I thought I was going to be able to do this tonight. No. If I have to go long Sunday, we'll go long Sunday. We will finish this Sunday, okay? We will. Holy crap. We got another wheel to spin. This has been insane. Insane. Thanks, everyone, for coming through here tonight. This has been incredible. This has been crazy. What a night. What a night. Record-breaking wheel spins. Wheel number 5. Good luck, everyone. Ooh, good spin. I knew Gabby was going to win that one because Gabby was all over that wheel. Gabby wins, and Gabby just got a shirt sent out. Gabby came through here going crazy here tonight. I mean, I don't know who Gabby is. I've never heard or seen Gabby. Wink, wink. No one talk about it. She might have been doing something she wasn't supposed to. Gabby, thank you so much. I appreciate that. God, we had so many new wins tonight. Insane. Yeah, 5 new wins, and we're working on a 6th one. What a night. What a night. Holy cow. I don't even know what to say. I got nothing to say, actually. This was incredible. This was so crazy. But yeah, okay, Thursday night, unless I start at 7, keeping on everything, I should be starting at 8 Thursday, but we'll see. Again, I'm trying to get through as much of this as I can. Sunday, this thing will end. Period. It will end because next Tuesday I want to go into the openings for the Charlie Adelson trial, which will be the first day of jury selection for his mother, Donna Adelson. And the first episode, actually, it might not be openings on Tuesday. The first episode, it might, yeah. I may have time after to do the openings because the beginning is going to be these graphics that I made that are going to break down and get everybody caught up with what's going on in the Adelson trial, and really would even be good for anybody that's already seen Charlie and wants to go into Donna. But again, I can't really cover Donna in real time because I work a job. So I'm going to do Charlie and try to do some Donna coverage, but we will probably get the Donna either way. So that's how we're going to do. That's how we're going to do that. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be wild. I think you're right. But right now, what we're going to do is, you guys are incredible. Right now, we're going to do this. We're not even done. All the new folks that got membered up here tonight. Idiot Win membered up a bunch of new folks. I think Jersey Jen membered up somebody. Thank you guys so freaking much because we got some new, lovely people to be able to come into the Buzz Nation Book Club. And if you haven't joined us, you may want to. Again, we're reading The Stranger Beside Me, Anne Rule, a Ted Bundy book. She worked with Ted Bundy in a call center. We just read chapters 30 and 31, and we're going to be finishing this thing. But if you are just jumping in and you're like, oh man, we're already more than halfway through this book, all of those are up for members. All members can go back and watch every one of those episodes previously, and I take pretty detailed notes about the chapters. Tonight's not going to be that long. Chapter 30 and 31 was pretty short, but we're about to do that right now. So everybody that came through here tonight, holy crap. We're about to go to 3.5 hours on a Tuesday night, which is nuts for me. That's almost like a murder church on a Sunday. But wow, one thing I got booked up for Friday, I'll go ahead and name it as well. I got Joe Schmo returning for Phil Friday. And we're going to do another tournament. He's picking 4 films, and I'm going to pick 4 films. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a summer movie party type film. His 4 are pretty awesome, and I'm going to try to match his energy on those movies. So, again, holy shit, tonight's been incredible. But come on over to Book Club. I'm going to hang out here for just a little bit longer. We're almost done. We're so freaking close. But you guys are incredible. I love you guys, and you know that. Come on over.